Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as you know, my name is David Wynn Miller, but I punctuate my name. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, all punctuated the name same as I did. They were all 34-degree Master Masons. Now, I don't know if there's any Masons in the crowd, but I am a 92nd degree Mason. I know you've been taught that Masonry goes to 33 and 34 degrees for Grand Masters. The reason I'm a 92nd degree Mason is because in 1988 I broke the math interface in all 5,000 languages, proving that language is a linear equation in algebra. This hasn't been done in 8,500 years of written language. When I did so, I was able to unlock the 2/3 of all the words missing from all languages in the world, and I can write any sentence in any language, frontwards and backwards, with the same meaning. Once this was discovered, it completely, 48 hours after I published on the internet, I had 2 Secret Service agents from Washington at my front door going, "Do you realize what you've done? You've just disqualified every treaty, trust, and contract in 8,500 years on planet Earth." I says, "Well," he says, "who did you tell?" I says, "Everyone." I says, "I sent out 100 videos, 20 hours long, including a 100-page report on the entire studies, to all nations of the United Nations and over 100 TV and news agencies around the United States. By doing that, I protected myself, because when you have a secret that is so profound that it would disqualify planet Earth, it would cause you to get shot. And at every seminar, by the end of the seminar, there's always a dozen people that walk up to you and say, "Why are you still walking around?" Well, as Pandora, destroyer of worlds. Now, you might think that that's a bad thing. The word destroyer, D-E, means no, and stroy is contract. Of is an adverb which connects to a pronoun in front of it. P-R-O means no, N-O means no, and U-N means no. So the word destroyer is a no, no, no word. Of is an adverb, A-D-V. It's a modifier. Modifiers connect the pronouns in front of it and modify the verb after it. Modification is change, change is motion, motion is action, and action is verb. Therefore, the word world becomes a verb. Do you live in a world of verb, or do you live in a world of a fact? As you all know, the word world is a fact. But because it's the destroyer of verb, I destroyed the world of verb in all 5,000 languages worldwide on April 6th, 1988. And so with that said, how did this come about? Well, in 1980, I went through a divorce. And in the divorce, Judge Stanley Miller said, "You cannot be a father to your children." And he took away my children. I'm going, "Well, why would you do that? I've been a good father for 10 years. And he goes, "Because I'm a judge," he says, "and I can take away people's children just because I can." I says, "Well, that's sex discrimination. Under the 1964 Civil Rights Act for equality, I says, I'm going to prosecute you." And he says, "You can't prosecute judges." I says, "I beg the difference." I says, "I know what the law is. You swore to support the Constitution of the United States and the laws written by the United States Congress, Senate, and Legislature." I says, "That includes equality." I says, "If I don't have equality, that's discrimination." Pretty simple. So I prosecuted Judge Stanley Miller in 1980, and he was disbarred as a judge. 7 years later, Stanley Miller got reappointed again. 2 weeks later, after he was reappointed, I showed up in his courtroom, had him disbarred again 4 days later. 7 years later, 1994, got reappointed again. And I showed up in his courtroom 2 weeks after he got reappointed, had him disbarred a third time. 3 years later, he died in 1997. And never served much on the bench. Always was an administrator, but never a judge. As a result of that, when the judge took away my children, that violation, that breaking of my heart, put me on a path. And that path was anger. You don't take away a parent's child. And the pain that caused, pain makes thought, thought makes wisdom, and wisdom grows to maturity. So as a result of that pain, I started studying. Now, we go through 3 phases in life. You do not know what you do not know. Well, it's like putting your hand in fire. It looks pretty until you touch it and you get burnt. Well, you know what you don't know about why you got burnt. And I was aware of what I didn't know, so I had to study. And so because I studied, I learned about what the fire was. I learned about what the pain was. And from that, I then had knowledge. And when I had knowledge, I knew what I knew. And then I could become a teacher. In 1975, I became a college professor in Milwaukee. And I taught engineering and metallurgy, heat treating, and blueprint reading. So I've been a teacher now 30, so 75, so going on 38 years. I hold a professional license for college. I also have 3 PhDs and 535 college credits, 17 full-time years of college. Kind of got stuck in college. I really liked it. I worked third shift nights as a tool and die welder, and I went to school full-time days. I had but to fill in my spare time because I didn't sleep, I went ahead and had a second full-time job, and that was in real estate, teaching underwater welding. I had my own real estate company for 26 years, besides doing law from 1980 to present time, 32 years. I have 80,000 hours of law experience. And I've done 2,500 seminars, including over 1,000 TV and radio live performances. I did the programs on 9/11 on national television on what really happened there. There's only a few people in the world that have my background and credentials about what heat treating is, nuclear science, string theories and quantum physics. I have a 200 IQ. I read 400 words a second in math codes. It's something that's acquired art. You can give me an inch of paper and of documents, and I'll blow through it in about a minute. And I'll be able to tell you exactly about how many mistakes are in it and what to do about it. The program today is going to cover many different aspects. So I'm going to go through the parts of speech, which I wrote up here. It took 6 years of my life to discover this. It isn't really what you think it is. And what they teach you in school is not what you actually, is actually what's going on. And this isn't to insult anybody, but all of you have a second grade reading level. And it isn't just you, it's the entire population of the planet was instructed and through TV, radio, newspapers, and magazines to keep you in a second grade reading level, because that way they could harvest the entire population of the planet. There's a few individuals called federal judges and chief federal judges at a state level that control what's called parsing, syntax, grammar, and the secrets therein. When I broke the code in 1988, I went to the United States Supreme Court. I walked in there in 1989, and it says, I'm here to prosecute William Rehnquist, Chief Supreme Court Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Immediately, I was arrested for threatening the United States Supreme Court judge and taken into a closed room. Well, when we got down in that room, I had 6 marshals standing shoulder to shoulder surround me, and William Rehnquist came down from up in his chambers to see me, and I says, I have your signed confession for treason against the United States people. I says, I've used parsing, syntax, grammar against your opinion since you've been in office. He says, okay, guys, you can all leave now. Mr. Miller and I are going to sit in this closed room. You've already frisked him. He has no weapons. He doesn't seem to be of stature that can overpower me. And we're going to have a little discussion. So for the next 2.5 hours, William Rehnquist and I became very good friends. And until he died and I removed him from office in June of 2005, we were pretty good friends. I taught him syntax, the math interface on grammar, and he taught me all the secrets of the procedures of judges. But a lot of the things he taught me, he was in error of, because 2/3 of all the words were missing from the procedures by which he wanted to formulate answers. Now, believe it or not, we are all actors in a play that have been already written. All of you believe that you have a certain amount of choice to make in life. But the fact is, and I will do this later this afternoon when we get into some history programs, that we are on timetables that run on 7-year international, on domestic bankruptcies and 70-year international bankruptcies. These bankruptcies control the planet for the last 6,500 years in all countries. All countries worldwide are controlled by the post office. Not the courts, not the judges, not the kings and queens, but the postmasters of the world run the entire planet, have for 6,700 years. Going all the way back to Pharaoh, henceforth the Masons. Now, a lot of you we're in this room today. A room is a closed area, so therefore it's a court. I'm going to show you a dollar bill here, which you're all familiar with, and on the back of the dollar bill you have the eagle, right? Notice the eagle's wings are turned up. If you notice the eagle's wings here are turned down, that's because it's a phoenix. This is Vatican rule, banking. And the flag here has yellow fringe on it. And the yellow fringe flag changes the dimension of the flag. This is a maritime braid for commerce. The fringe changes the description of the flag. It's under Army Regulations 840-10, Chapter 2-6. Allows for fringe to be put on military flags for parades. But anything you put on top of the flag cancels the contract of what a flag is. So even though you think you're looking at a United States flag, United, UN means no, and ITE is citizen. A no citizens condition of state flag, controlled by Vatican banking. You're all under commerce. So who's the Vatican? They're postmasters. They work with Bern, Switzerland, through the Universal Postal Union. On the 29th of September 2009, I did a seminar in Auckland, New Zealand. In that seminar, there were 90 Auckland tribal chiefs of the 1,200 tribal chiefs that live in New Zealand. I then made a statement that the post office since 1800 has never had a correct parsate, syntax, grammar, law, rule, regulation, or code in any language with any people on planet Earth. As a result of that, 72 hours later, 3 days, the United States Postal Service, which since 2000 has had a quantumized postal treaty with myself and Russell Gould, my business partner. Two of us make corporate. On the 27th of August 1999, I sued the United States of America for the flag of the United States. I filed a new quantumized mathematical patent on the description of the flag of the United States, 1 to 1.9. And he used the correct grammar, called parsate syntax grammar. As a result of that, on August 12, 1999, I owned the patents to the flag of the United States of America. And on August 13th, all flags had yellow fringe put on it because they had to change the dimension of the flag. Now, I don't know if you remember in 1968 when the astronaut, for those of you that are old enough, and I don't think there's a whole lot of you here that are old enough, the astronaut stepped off his spacecraft into his footprints on the moon, turned around, looked at Earth, and says, "Oh, look, Earth is a vessel in a sea of space." And with that one single sentence, Earth is a vessel in a sea of space. That's maritime. The entire world put yellow fringe on every flag in all 250 countries, in every courtroom, in church, and office, making everything on planet Earth maritime. Maritime is controlled by the DOT, Department of Transportation, which is controlled by the Postal Service worldwide, Bern, Switzerland. Bern, Switzerland was established on the 22nd of October, 1871 in Hawaii. It was the first city, first country as an independent nation to sign an international bankruptcy with Bern, Switzerland for 2 cents to transport cargo anywhere on planet Earth. And as a result of that, within a period of a year, all 250 countries for a 2-cent postage stamp signed up to give the post office authorization to transport vessels for a 2-cent postage stamp. Well, as you know, people were thinking of mail. Just send a letter. A letter is a vessel. Well, the word vessel includes cars, trains, planes, automobiles, overland stagecoaches, pony expresses, and human beings. And by doing so, they then captured all commerce on planet Earth by contract for a 2-cent postage stamp. A year later, it went up to a buck a letter. But they got their foot in the door, and that was all that was necessary. Somebody left a little tiny article sitting in a newspaper in January 8th, 1872, on a microfiche dish in Honolulu, Hawaii, in the Iolani Palace Museum Archives building. Hightower and I went into that building that day, and we wanted to look for a flag of Hawaii. And they said, we guarantee there is no information in this building from 1869 through 1875. And I'm going, now, why wouldn't there be anything? Hawaii's the center of the Pacific. Anything moving from east to west and west to east has to stop at Hawaii to get coal, C-O-A-L, for fuel, as everything ran on steam back then. So Hawaii then became the center of the entire Pacific Rim, hub to a wheel. Very, very important location. And by doing so, that started a series of events through the Universal Postal Union to capture the entire planet, throw the entire world into a postal zone. And this little tiny article, as it was put into place, was left there. Nobody thought anything of it. Well, we did find a flag on the newspaper. It had 8 stripes instead of 7. But there was also a little square, 3 inches by 4 inches, with the obituary. The obituary of the Portuguese Masonic Eye, the French Masonic Eye, the German scale, and the English scale. So now we had ordering all Masons in the Hawaiian Islands to come to Honolulu, Hawaii to pay homage to King Kamehameha V, who died on the 6th of December. I'm telling you the story because it is relevant to the beginning of the takeover of planet Earth. As a result of this, it takes a steamer 3 days to go from Honolulu out to Kona and Hilo and back again. So 3 plus 3 is 6. January 8th and 6th is January 14th. January 14th, all the Masons get together with the post office, Immigrations and Customs, the Supreme Court of Hawaii. Guess what building they're all in? They're all in the same building directly across from the Queen's Palace in Hawaii. Immigrations, Customs, the Lodge number 1 for the Masons, the Postmaster General of Hawaii, all in the same building. And they cut a treaty. The treaty says that there was, in 1848, a law was passed in Hawaii that if Hawaiians are dead or off the land for 20 years, the land is free for settlement. So they went ahead and the Masons signed this contract to take over the Hawaiian Islands. Now, there's a law called the Rescissions Act. It goes all the way back to the Civil War. The Rescissions Act says that no law becomes legal for 3 days. And this 3-day notice, if you ever look at when contracts are signed, even when you all did your mortgages, either bought property or sold property, you couldn't pick up a check in your closing for 3 days. That's because of the Rescissions Act. That's Title 15, Section 1636 and 1639. Now, the Rescissions Act then went into effect on the 17th of January, 1872. Put a 20-year moratorium on it. It's January 17th, 1893, when the United States took over the Hawaiian Islands. For those who don't know anything about the Hawaiian Islands, takeover. Except it wasn't the United States of America that took over the Hawaiian Islands. It was the military, and the military is controlled by the post office. It was the United States Postal Service that took over the Hawaiian Islands. Now, as a result of this takeover, the injustice that people were a victim of went out there and sued the state court. The state court says, we don't have jurisdiction. You're in the wrong place. So the Hawaiians then went to federal court. They walked into federal court, United States District Court, and the district court said, you're in the wrong place. We don't have jurisdiction over you. You're a sovereign people. So they went to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. United States Supreme Court, Washington, D.C., you're in the wrong place. You sued the wrong people. They're going like, all right, we're being victimized. They stole their land. Who's guilty? So from January 17th, 1893, all the way up until January 6, 2009, nobody knew who was guilty. As a result of that, because I'm a Mason, and I syntax Manly Hall's The Secret of All Nations with Masons throughout the history of this world for 8,500 years. I have the book. There's only 5 copies on planet Earth, and I own one of them. And when I syntax that book is 18 inches tall, 1 foot wide, and 2 inches thick. It's now 6 inches thick because of all the missing words were put back into it. It covers everything on the planet, every religion, the tarot cards, witchcraft, grammar, all the parts of speech, parse, how words come together. It's got all the secrets in it. But the secrets were only written in adverb-verb, not prepositional phrases. So when I rewrote it with the correct parse, syntax, grammar, I then had missing secrets. I did the same thing through the Quran for the Muslims, and I did it through the Bible, King James Bible. I was able to discover the secrets, putting me as the chief federal judge of the United States of America, prosecuting judges for the past 32 years. That's what I do. I prosecute judges. I'm the bad boy. As a result of this, the reason I told you this is because everybody wants you to walk into the state court. Well, state is undefined. You live in the state of Indiana, right? That's not a true statement. You live in the Indiana Territory. The state of Indiana is the name of the vessel in dry dock called your courthouse. All courthouses are foreign vessels in dry dock controlled by the Department of Transportation. In other words, the port authorities control vessels in dry dock. All judges in the United States and all courthouses are paid by the port authorities. That's a very big secret. The port authorities are controlled by the DOT, Department of Transportation, which is owned by the Post Office, which owns the Treasury and the military and prints the money and pays the military to guarantee the value of the money. The United States District Court, United means no citizen. State is a condition of. District, D-I-S, means demon god of the underworld for T-R-I-C-T, trickery. This is Latin. In a closed area called court. So when you walk into the United States District Court building, you're in a vessel, a foreign vessel in dry dock. Could be a spaceship from any planet, but not from Earth. So you've left planet Earth. You are no longer in the territory of Indiana. Now, all the laws written in Indiana for Indiana people do not apply in a foreign vessel in dry dock. You speak a foreign language called Babel. You are a foreign entity. And as a federal judge, when you walk in front of me, what do I have in front of me? Do I have a document that actually says something, or is it written in adverb by babbling attorneys and lawyers? What I have in front of me are your vessels, your body. Hold a thought in your hand. Show me the three-dimensional object of a thought. Do you know that a thought is not of this world? A thought isn't found on the periodic table. It's not a solid, it's not a liquid, it's not a gas, it's not a chemical. And yet we all have thoughts. It's an energy, comes from our aura, electrical chemical energy, but it is not of this world. A thought can pierce dimensions, can change through time and space. I can hold the entire known universe, which they say is supposed to be 8.4 billion years old from the Big Bang, in the palm of my hand with a thought. Or I can crawl inside the middle of a quark, of a hydrogen atom, and exist there with a thought. So a thought is a very unique thing. We can close our eyes every night when we dream, and we can be anything we want to be in this world of thought. And I know everyone in this room has had weird dreams at times. And in those weird dreams, you see things that don't exist in this world, because you're probably transporting, because the thought is not of this world, into other realms, other planes of dimension. Well, this is what's unique. I can't see that as a federal judge. The only thing I can see in front of me is a vessel. Does this vessel come before me with the correct passport, with the correct paperwork, with a lawsuit written in the correct parse, syntax, grammar? Or does the vessel come before me on my foreign vessel spaceship from another planet, and are you trespassing without any rules, regulations, or codes? Well, the only thing I have as a judge in front of me is a vessel that's trespassing. And everybody knows there's a law for trespassing. And I don't care what language you speak, and I don't care what educational levels you have, or what country you come from. Everyone understands the word perjury. It means to tell a lie. So the minute you open your mouth, we presume you're smart until you start talking. And because you're talking in babble and you're talking in adverb-verb fiction, now you've committed perjury. A vessel is trespassing, committing perjury in front of me. I got 2 felonies in front of me. So it doesn't matter if you're here for traffic, doesn't matter if you're here for foreclosure, doesn't matter if you're here for divorce, marriage, doesn't matter what you're here for. The only thing I've got in front of me is a physical evidence in now time of a trespassing individual committing perjury. Now I can make a determination as to what your fine is going to be. How rich are you? How much money you got in your pocket to bail yourself out and leave my vessel? You can go down here to the port of Chicago or Gary, Indiana, jump on a Chinese freighter with a Chinese flag on it without a passport, and I guarantee you'll be arrested, put in a brig, and taken back to China, where you'll be prosecuted and spend 8 years in prison for trespassing. And then the State Department can bail you out and bring you back to the United States. It's no different in a courtroom. It's a big old trap, folks. People have been walking into it since 8,500 years. Really great piece of engineering. Just a little heads up on that. The reason I tell you the story about Hawaii is because it's the beginning of something that was very cynical. To capture planet Earth. All money on planet Earth is controlled by the Postal Service. Who's on, what's the decimal point for 1? 1.00, right? Who's on a $100 bill? Benjamin Franklin, first Postmaster General of the United States of America. President Grant was a Postmaster General during the Civil War. A country divided into 1/2. Decimal point for 1/2 is 0.50. Who's on a $50 bill? Grant. Abraham Lincoln. No, go before that. George Washington, letter carrier, Continental Congress, 1875. And he was a letter carrier. And on September 17th, 1789, the United States of America signed the Constitution of the United States of America. And so, therefore, he was the first president. Pre, meaning no. SI is simulation, and DENT is denture, contract. Anything, the word no is a negative. Negative is 0. 0 times any fact, simulation, or contract becomes 0. Therefore, the math interface says that a pre-simulation denture, better known as a president, is a person who only says nothing about nothing. Have you ever seen a president that ever made any sense? Okay. I know it's a joke, but it's a good one. Yeah, it's all played out in syntax. So the grammar that's used for modification is what they keep us down with, what they teach you in school. Now, lawyers and attorneys are all licensed to lie. They write everything in adverb, verb, adverb, adjective, pronoun, and pronoun, adverb, verb. They don't use prepositional phrases because they're not allowed to use a fact. No law or fact shall be tried in court. And if you want to put that in there, of law, and everybody uses this terminology, attorney at law, attorney of law, whatever. Parts of speech. No is an adverb, it's negative. Law now becomes a verb, negative. Or is a neutral. Negative fact becomes a negative verb also. Shall is a pronoun in future time connected to the adverb be, which now modifies a verb in past time. In is an adverb making court a verb. Of is an adverb making law a verb. Now we've got one jurisdiction, ladies and gentlemen. We have a verb law, a verb court, verb tried, verb law, verb fact. Now we have one jurisdiction called fiction, fraud, illusion. Every word in the English language, and I spent 8,000 hours in 2 years with a staff of individuals with dictionaries. We looked up every word in the English language that starts with a vowel and 2 consonants. It means no contract. Every word. Now, when you look at any contract or any newspaper or magazine, you see the word starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, and U, and it's used as a single syllable. It means no contract also. Opinion. O is no. P-I-N is to attach or grab. I-O-N is contract. Opinion. No attached contract. Therefore, that's why it's called an opinion. You can have a gain, G-A-I-N, and you put A in front of it, again, you have no gain. You can have an attorney, A-T-T, no tort. You can have an illusion, I-L-L, which means you cannot see a contract. Imagination, I-M-M. You cannot mangle. You can't mangle something, therefore there's no fact. So the imagination, I-O-N, means contract. A-N-T, E-N-T, I-O-N-T-Y. Any vowel that appears in front of a vowel that ends a word means contract. It's a 2-letter contract. That's how you can tell these things. This is called parse, P-A-R-S-E, parts of speech. S-C is Latin for speech. P-A-R is parts. So what I did was I studied parse. I studied syntax. Syntax is how 2 words come together. And the word grammar is how a sentence is constructed. Do you know that all grammar, a correct worded sentence, only has 1 verb in it? The average sentence written by an attorney has anywhere from 3 to 5 verbs in it. Some sentences have adverb, verb, adverb, verb, adverb, verb. The whole sentence is written that way. There's not even an adjective or a pronoun, a preposition, article, or a fact. When you were in school, 5th grade, we studied prepositional phrases. That was the preposition, article, and noun made up your prepositional phrase. Mrs. Lusher was my 5th grade English teacher in Marion County Grade School in North Grove, Indiana. I grew up with the Amish, the Mennonite, and the Hoosiers. I come from North Grove, Indiana. My family's been there since 1834. North Grove, Indiana was where the first house in the state of Indiana was built by my cousin. My fifth cousin's on my mother's side. But we came here from Pennsylvania. I'm Cherokee. My great-great-grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, and my grandfather came to Switzerland in 1780. Settled here in North Grove, Indiana. Half the people in the town are related to me as great aunts and great uncles, and going all the way back to 1834. My cousin, who I played with in 1957, was born in 1838. She died in 1957 when I was 8 years old. 114 years old she was, living in the same house her parents built in North Grove, Indiana. Isn't that something? She's in the Guinness Book of World Records. This is one of the oldest people living. And I think she's probably one of the oldest ones in Indiana. And I used to work on the farms with the Quakers and the Amish here in Indiana, cutting hay and driving tractors. And I had my fun playing in the hay at the harvest time. So I'm fully aware of the politics and everything. And Mrs. Lusher, my English teacher, was my next door neighbor. We had an 80-acre farm with 40 pigs. We had 40 head of cattle, and we were farmers too. My mom and dad gave that a shot. I had six brothers and sisters, so big family. When we studied prepositions, Pre meant no, position. An article, anytime you have a vowel and two consonants, ART, we have no ownership. So if you have no position and you have no ownership, you have a no-no. N-O is no and UN is no in Latin. Better known as the noun. So what we did is when we disqualified this in 1999, we had to come up with a brand new answer for a mathematical interface on grammar. So we did this. We had a position, dropping the word pre. And the word loadial is spelled L-O, which is location, D-I is original, A-L is contract. And if you have ownership, in other words, for my pen, for is a position, my is loadial, and pen would then become a fact. Now, if I just were to drop one of these two positions here and say my pen and drop the word for, or with my pen, and I drop the word with, and just say my pen, my becomes an adverb, and an adverb modifies a verb. Modification is change, change is motion, motion is action, action is verb. See, now ADV, vowel and two consonants, modifier. ADJ, adjective, color, modifier. PRO, no. NO, no. UN, no. They gave us a lot of negative choices, all to go with this sentence here. When you graduate from judge school, you learn this article. Do you learn this? All judges, attorneys, lawyers, politicians all swear the same oath that no law or fact shall ever be tried in court. And no is a negative. That's why the sign says no trespassing, no parking, no don't walk. And see what the sign should read: for the trespassing on this land is with the fee of the $5,000. For the parking of the car in this space is with the fee of the $500. That's a performance contract. Everyone understands performance contracts. Now I have the Pizza Hut next to the Outback Steakhouse. Very popular places on Saturday night and Friday night. And the people came to my seminar from Pizza Hut. They said, you know, we've got 2 spaces reserved for delivery. And everybody parks in there, and my delivery guy's got no place to park. I says, well, put a sign up. For the parking of the car is with the crushing and melting. The sign next to it says, for the parking of the car is with the fee of the $500. No one ever parked in those 2 parking spaces again, except the delivery man. Problem solved, because everyone understands the performance contract. Now, here's another little quirk, point of information. Somebody impounds your car. You parked it where it wasn't supposed to be parked, and they towed it, put it in an impound lot. And the guy wants some $250 for towing and $100 a day for storage. Well, anybody that's in possession of your vehicle that doesn't have title to it is renting your vehicle. So you send him a true bill for renting your automobile for as long as he's had it. If you want to go down to the local courthouse, you can pull up a lawsuit by Avis Rent-A-Car or Hertz Rent-A-Car, copy it, and sue the tow truck company. Or if a police officer orders a tow truck company to remove your vehicle from the highway and he won't give it back to you, send him a true bill for for rent-a-car. Your car will be back in 1 day, maybe a couple hours. Works every time. Just a little plug there. The fraud that takes place here is profound with the courthouses and the courts. And people say we're in court, and the judge says, this is Judge Wasilewski, he says, David, after he took away my children in 1980, I went to trial 65 consecutive times, 2 weeks apart, under what's called a writ de novo. Now, this is a pronoun adverb, adverb, verb. But if you put for the rid of de novo, then this becomes a 5, a 6, a 7, a 5, a 6, and a 7. This is French, but de means the, in novo, it would then become a fact. So I filed for the writ of the de novo. Now what that means is if you violate equality, that's discrimination, that's a crime. 1964 Civil Rights Act violation. So for the writ of de novo is your ticket to get a free trial for anything. I don't care what it is. They cannot move forward on any topic. If they want to foreclose your house and they use adverb verb, they didn't give you equal protection of the law. That's a prepositional phrase. For the protection of the law using the correct parsing syntax grammar. Therefore, you can sue for a writ of de novo just for the be correct on the grammar. It doesn't matter if you got a mortgage or a deed of trust. Indiana uses the terminology mortgage. California uses the terminology deed of trust. Deed is a pronoun, of is an adverb, making trust a verb. The word mortgage, by it stands alone on top of your document, is called a pronoun. There's no prepositional phrase. You know, if I hold up this object, you see a pen. In Spanish, it's scribola. And if I hold this object about 5,000 languages, I'll get 5,000 different sounding effects to what it is. Does 2 plus 2 equal 4? How many of you think 2 plus 2 equals 4? All right, just all's fair. Did you hear what I said, what I meant, what I said, what I said, what I meant, what I said? I can do this 150 different ways before I'm going to get it right. So don't ever presume what you think I said, because if my lips are moving, I'm lying to you. That's what a judge said to me. He says, all you got to do is prove it. He says, and in 8,500 years, Wasilewski says, no one has ever proved it. And I said to him, I said, oh, I says, I know what you said to me. You said to me, wait a minute. He says, you mean to say if I say yes, you're going to say no? He goes, yep. And if I say no, you're going to say yes? He says, that's right. And I says, all right. Does 3 plus 3 equal 6? He goes, yeah. He says, no one ever went to war over a math problem in the history of mankind. No religion, no political organization, no condition of state, no country ever went to war over a math problem. 2 weeks ago, President Obama and President Bill Clinton stood on the podium at the Republican convention on national TV. And the closing statement by Bill Clinton was, no one ever went to war over a math problem in the history of mankind, and we're doing it correct. That's an exact quote from all 2,500 seminars I've done. And by the way, I was Bill Clinton's counsel for the sex trial. Remember the phrase, for those that are old enough? The question was, what is sex? Bill Clinton goes, depends on what the definition of is. And then Bill Clinton turns to the judge and says, I just showed the American people a verb is and a noun is. Would you like me to show them another verb and another noun? And the judge stands up and says, there will be no further questions, Mr. President. This court stands adjourned. Well, every newspaper, TV, announcer, magazine had a comment about that. It became a very, very, very famous phrase. And that famous phrase was one question and a demur. The word demur means to answer a question with a question. And the trial was over. And so nobody knew what it meant. I knew what it meant. I was his counsel. Senator Bill Clinton says to me, Dave, he says, that worked really good. He says, but I got to go in front of Congress, he says, 2 weeks. And I can't take my lawyer with me. I says, well, you're a lawyer, Bill. I says, I'll tell you what you do. You remember the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson? You want the truth, I'll tell you the truth, but you can't handle the truth. Jack Nicholson won Best Actor for that phrase on the witness stand. And the movie won Best Picture that year. And what it was the... go back to the $1 bill again. A little history lesson here. Now, March 1st, 1997, I was doing a seminar in Los Angeles, California. And in that seminar, somebody asked me a question. What do you know about trusts? I says, well, what do you want to know? He says, well, I've got a trust here. He says, well, did you look at it? He says, sure. There's 40 people in the audience. Hands it to me and says, well, this is garbage. He says, what do you mean it's garbage? I says, well, the parsing syntax grammar is all wrong. So I went ahead and I took just the first paragraph and I syntaxed it, put it up on the board, told them what it meant. Then I wrote it in the correct language. 2 IRS agents were in the front row. Jumped up and realized that I just broke $40 trillion worth of trust held in the United States. That's 25 million trusts. As they hit the door, trying to get out the door at the same time to get to the payphones, because back then we only had payphones, they locked their shoulders in the door jamb, and it looked like the Keystone cops trying to get out of a phone booth. Well, everybody had a really good laugh as these 2 clowns were trying to get through the door, but what they were doing is trying to get to the phone first. And in the next 5 days, they harvested $100 billion in trusts across the United States under false and misleading statements under parsing syntax grammar. I broke the world of trust. Well, what they did is when they took those $100 billion, they sold that money on Wall Street. The second week, they took another $100 billion and sold it. Third week, they took another $100 billion and sold it. March 1st, 1997, the United States stock market stood at 6,000. On March 21st, it was at 5,300. Dropped 10%, 600 points. So I called up the Postmaster General of the United States and I said, why are you guys selling your money? Why don't you buy .com stock with it? As the electronics is going to be the new phase of planet Earth for communications. The fourth week, when they took $100 billion, they also went ahead and they took the other $300 billion they just stole out of the trust industry and they bought stock with it, causing the stock market to jump 700 points in the fourth week. And they continued to harvest the trust industry, which was money that was not in circulation. And the stock market went from 5,300 to 14,200, all the way up to 9/11. And then 9/11 brought everything back down to 6,000 again because of the new terrorist bill and all that stuff. We'll get into that later. But going back to Bill Clinton, he says, how am I going to go in front of Congress here in 2 weeks? I says, well, you're going to hold up a $1 bill. Walk into Congress, say, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started today, I'm going to tell you the truth. He says, but you won't be able to handle the truth. Phrasing Jack Nicholson. He says, you know, we're going to take you back to when you were 10 years old, 5th grade English. He says, first off, we have a line that goes around the money here. March 1st, 1997, I sued the United States Treasury under maritime law boxing. And that's why all your money today doesn't have any boxes on it. If you've... See the 10's got a circle around the 10. And the 20 has a circle around the 10. So does the 50s and 100s and the 5s. They're all the same. No more boxes except for the $1 bill. That's because there's so much Masonic information on the back. The pyramid has 72 stones on it. That's for 72, the rule 72 of banking. You take the interest first and you walk down to the principal. The all-seeing eye is Masonic. The capstone has never been completed because the process of discovery is always in motion. But going back to the beginning, it says the United States of America. Now, we all studied that prepositions were of, and the article was the. When you separate the prepositions, they all become adverbs. That means you have 68 prepositions and 38 articles. Together, you have 100 adverbs. So, the as an adverb now modifies united to be a no citizen. UN is no, IT is citizen. ED is in past time, which means you have no now time jurisdiction. It's also an adjective because whenever you put two nouns together called the United States, because it's a title of a country, United becomes a fact and States becomes a fact. But when you put a fact in front of a fact, the first fact becomes an adjective, which now turns the second fact, and an adjective is coloring or modification, which now changes the fact into a pronoun. P-R-O means no, N-O means no, and U-N means no. The pronoun is now connected to the adverb, ADV, vowel two consonants, no contract. And then the adverb modifies, modify is change, change is motion, motion is action, and action is verb, and America becomes a dangling participle verb on the money. Now, A is a single syllable. Therefore, A means no. M-E-R-I is Latin for mercy, and C-A is Latin for sheep. No mercy for the sheep. So we pay 65% taxes. But because America is the verb on a corporate instrument. Now we have two signatures on the money. Therefore, this is a corporate instrument. Corporations are under Title 15, Section 1692E, false and misleading statements. Carries a penalty of $25 million and 30 years in prison for every note published under Title 15, Section 78FF. Under Title 15, Section 1639A, there was no notification given to the United States population that the modification of grammar under Title 18, Section 1001, which is the fictitious conveyance of language, was going to be used on our Federal Reserve notes, on our money. So to protect the fraud, we put a box around it. Anything in a box is an enclosed area and can't be considered. It was engineered, folks, not a mistake, engineered. Just like you build a space shuttle, it's engineered. If it's perfect, it works. Well, we had a perfect fraud. What's the first two little words over here? It says this note. It doesn't say for this note or by this note or of this note or with this note. It says this note. Therefore, we drop the preposition. This becomes an adverb making note a verb. Does this look like a verb to you? Misrepresentation. So now we have a Title 18, Section 1341, mail fraud. Carries a $1 million fine and 30 years in prison. Title 18, 1001, fictitious conveyance of grammar. Title 18, Section Title 15, Section 1692E, false and misleading statements. And we have Title 18, 1621, perjury, because we didn't advertise it. Now we have 4 criminal acts that take place on the dollar bill. Bill Clinton then says to Congress, you know, in 2 weeks I've got to address the union and do my union address. I have to tell the world that America's a verb on the money, and then articulate the criminal activities that's taking place here and disqualify all U.S. currency that 150 countries worldwide depend on for commerce, food, and energy. Or we can seal a case. All those in favor of sealing the case, raise your hand. 102 hands goes up, and he walks out and doesn't say a word. Now, who controls money? Universal Postal Union. Universal Postal Union gets the word, and all 250 countries are told to stand down. Bill Clinton's case is sealed, and nobody talks about Bill Clinton's indiscretion. Shortly thereafter, Hillary Clinton runs for President of the United States against Obama. Does anybody talk about the indiscretion of Bill and Hillary? Not a peep. Not even North Korea, not even Afghanistan, not even the Middle East countries. All the people that hate the United States are all told by the Universal Postal Union, you will keep your mouth shut and don't talk about anything of Bill Clinton, or he's going to spill the beans on the language. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. You think you got freedom of speech? Yeah. It stops with the money. Who controls the money controls the world. Always follow the gold. So therefore, Hillary doesn't make it. Obama's elected as the 47th consecutive left-handed president. Romney is right-handed, by the way. There's never been a right-handed president. What does that tell you? Who's going to win the election? Obama, yes. Or me. I have 5 billion people on my website. I have the 58% of the world's population studying parse syntax grammar. I could very easily be as a written-in candidate come November 6th. Yeah, November 6th, that's right. Tuesday. Just like Lewinsky did in Poland. Stood up, People found him to be an honest person, and he got 92% of the write-in vote. Became the best president Poland ever had for 10 years until he took a bribe and got thrown in jail. True story. So the money is a key here. Always follow the money. Now, you came here, most of you, some of you, are involved with mortgages. The mortgage that you are in possession of was written entirely in adverb, verb, adverb, adjective, pronoun, and pronoun, adverb, verb. The mortgage has 6,000 mistakes on it. It is a perfect document that has absolutely zero facts on it, and it was not signed by your bank. No mortgage in the United States of 64 million mortgages was ever signed by the bank since 1934. Stalin captured Russia, nationalized it in 1917. He went to Rothschild and said to Rothschild, I need money to fight the Bolshevik Revolution. Rothschild says, you can have all the money you want. Remove the article from your speech in Russian. And Stalin killed 80 million Russians who refused to use adverb-verb grammar. That was a secret. Because there was no TV or radio back then, it was very easy to genocide a population and without having anybody know it. They did the same thing in Hawaii from 1800 to 1829. 38,000 Hawaiians had their heads cut off because the Hawaiian language has no vowel into consonant conception, and they use prepositional phrases. And because they wouldn't speak an adverb verb like the church wanted them to study, they cut off their heads. And finally, after doing enough of them, people got the message that if we don't follow this new adverb verb program, then that we're going to be dead. So that's how they captured Hawaii. So this brainwashing of the adverb verb scenario became relevant, and so Stalin was able to get financing and captured Russia. In 1934, Mao Zedong nationalized China, which had 1,200 dialects. Now they only have 4. So we need usually 3. I just came back from 23 days in China. That was quite an eye-opener, going to China. Everything you hear about China, total nonsense. I'm here to tell you, it's total brainwashing. Those people are, if I blindfolded you and dropped you off in China right now in the countryside, you'd think you're in Indiana. It's flat, all farms, people working, growing corn, wheat, barley, everything. Just they don't have any equipment. They're all out there working by hand. And they're pushing carts. They don't have tractors pulling things. Some of the bigger farms will use a tractor. And these tractors are pretty old. They're like 30, 40 years old. I didn't see any modern equipment anywhere, but I saw a lot of labor. They got 1.4 million people, 1 billion people. So they got plenty of people. But most of the country is either mountainous or desert, so there's very small farm areas. I drove probably 600 miles totally around China's countryside. When I got off the plane in China, I was met by a translator, as I have held an ambassadorship with China since 2002 as a result of with the United Nations and my plenipotentiary judgeship. So when I showed up in China, they met me as a returning ambassador to China, and I was put in the presidential suite at the Bird's Nest, which is the Olympic Village in Beijing, for 10 days with a chauffeured limousine at the state's expense. But then what they wanted me to do was syntax, their electronics program. So I took a 1,800-word patent on a new electronics cell phone. The new cell phone is transparent aluminum, 3 by 5 inch screen, 3D holographic. It has a 200 lume video projector. And then when you set it down, it has pop-up AirTouch keyboard, just like Minority Report. Really state-of-the-art stuff. And it's not a 4 gigabyte, it's 1 terabyte. We're talking 128 gigs on a 20 nano chip. to a terabyte for efficiency, memory. The 200 lume is in high-resolution Blu-ray, and it puts out a 4-foot screen. Set it down next to your computer, it talks to your computer, transfers all the information from your computer into the cell phone and puts it up on a 4-foot screen. Just for, it also has a 2-inch by 2-inch transducer, it's called a subspace transducer. It's a microphone, it's a speaker, and it's also an antenna. Has a 38-mile range, can operate 100 feet underground, underwater, can read minerals up to 100 feet underground because it works in subspace. Now think of the hydrogen atom. You have an electron and you have a proton. This goes into space between the electron and the proton. As you know, all objects that we touch are held together by atoms. Atoms run on electromagnetics. But this operates in the space between the atoms and the electrons in subspace. Therefore, it can transmit 38 miles between towers and also operates underground. So this is the next stealth technology. That doesn't exist anymore with this new technology. The military's had this for 12 years and has been declassified because all the other militaries in the world now have it, so they're going to make it available to the public. So this is going to be the new cell phones coming out. Even though your Galaxy 3 might be pretty special at the cell phone store, this next generation cell phone is going to be something else. It's going to be Star Trek material. And, well, you've got a really good patent here, right? Written in adverb verb. And I was at this meeting with 5 electronics firms that the Chinese government invited me to be there. We had the guy that developed the subspace technology back in 2000, Michael, and Joseph was a Nikola Tesla electronics genius. He built 4 of these Nikola Tesla coils. So bring these 2 guys together, and they got this great electronics patent. But what's an object, just like this pen, what's an object worth if you don't have a patent for it that's written in quantum language? They can be protected worldwide. So they brought me in because I'm the only guy on the planet that writes quantum. So we went ahead and we showed it. We brought in 2 university professors from Beijing and 1 from Hong Kong on grammar. And they looked at it and said the patents couldn't be rewritten in less than 4 months. I says, well, give me your patents and I'll bring it back tomorrow morning and we'll all get together. So I rewrote it overnight. It took me 8 hours to write 1,860 words in quantum and restructure it. So every sentence was certified mathematically frontwards and backwards. So when we went ahead and we brought this patent back the next morning, we had 2 3-star generals, 1 2-star general was flown in. We had 5 electronics firms, 3 translators, and the 5 presidents from the electronics companies. And they said, and there was 1 nuclear physicist from Beijing also. As I've got a 4-year background in nuclear physics, because I was with the Polaris submarine program for nuclear degeneration of steel when exposed to plutonium for reactors. I did work on that. They came back and said it would take 4 months to do a translation. I did it in 8 hours. Then they said, can you write it in Chinese? I says, well, I don't speak Chinese, which is, as you know, symbols compared to our alphabet. I don't speak it, read it, or understand it, or write it. So I got on Google Translator, and word by word, it took me 1 hour to do 1,860 words. And I rewrote it in quantum Chinese, frontwards and backwards. Then he asked me, could you, because I reprogrammed my computer immediately as I worked the math interface on this, I then had interfaced the math program in 150 other languages. And my website is also written in 150 different languages. So it took 1 hour for me to translate from quantum English to quantum Chinese, and it took me 1 minute to translate from quantum Chinese to quantum French, German, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, and in Indian, And what they realized was that now they have a quantum program for a $20 trillion a year jump in contracts for international trade. We also gave them the international transportation of money contracts to transport money between one country and another for the new international quantum banking programs that Russell Gould and I have put together. All 150 nations worldwide have been given the patents to this technology for free. I've made this all available so the whole planet can switch over simultaneously. You can't have a world of fact and the world of fiction exist simultaneously, as fact and fiction can never meet. So in 2000, we educated the entire planet banking industry, and we gave them all of these 115-page bank treaties written in quantum grammar. It took us 7 years to put together. This is a 32-year program, by the way, that I've been working with personally. And been in the architect of this whole thing to change the entire planet from a world of verb into a world of fact, so no one can ever go to war again. Now, what's important about all this is that mankind has been throwing stones at each other because of international communication treaties, because miscommunications. But no one ever went to war over the math problem. Now, how many of you know about the object in Greenland? A couple of you, okay. Well, for those of you that don't know, there is a spacecraft that has melted out of the ice in Greenland. As you know, the North Pole has melted completely. You can go from London to Moscow or to Russia by going over the North Pole now. All the ice cap is gone. The last place that has ice on it was Greenland. Greenland had a 18,000-foot ice cap on it. Well, the spacecraft that is anchored in the center of Greenland created the last ice age 50,000 years ago. It's a weather machine. It's 55 miles wide, 300 miles long, and 2 miles high. The people that lived in it were called the Mois. If you draw a straight line from the spacecraft to the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., through the Yucatan Peninsula Great Pyramid at Mitsubishi, and ends up on Easter Island where the Mois have been dug out of this dirt. The heads on Easter Island, well, 2 years ago they finally went ahead and they excavated, and they're all 65 to 85-foot people, full-body carvings. And these were the people that lived in the spacecraft that was uncovered that's melting out of the ice in Greenland. So when you think we've been alone, these people have been up there for 50,000 years. The spacecraft is still active after 50,000 years. It has a 200-mile dampening field where no electrons can flow into it. In 1947, a B-52 bomber flew into that pattern, into the dampening field, when trying to fly between Maine and London. As a result of that, they lost power and crashed in Greenland. As they sent in rescue B-52 bombers to rescue them, they hit that same dampening field, but they veered off. They just ricocheted off of it. And by testing, trying to get to these guys, they were able to bring a circumference and find out that there was an object 200 miles to the center of this field. On the southwest corner of Greenland, there is a small community. It's the only community on the island of Greenland. That community is a military post, CIA, that uses a compressed air generator to operate diesel engines to run a Caterpillar to run back and forth to 200 miles from the base to the object in Greenland. A lot of our technology comes from the reverse engineering out of the spacecraft. It is still functional and is still in operation. So it's pretty important what this thing is. All the nations worldwide are up there with the United Nations, and they're all working together. The point is that we're not alone out here in this universe. The reason I bring this up is, if no one ever went to war over a math problem amongst humans, don't you think it would also be logical that we wouldn't go to war with E.T. when he shows up? And if E.T. does show up, what are we going to do? Babble? Start a war between another planet because of miscommunications? No, we need a communication base that is so mathematically certified, both frontwards and backwards, that when we say something, it means exactly what we say, so that there is no subjective interpretation, translation. So it's very important for us to be correct 100% of the time when we're dealing with ET. Otherwise, they're going to throw a rock at us like they did 375 million years ago at the Yucatan Peninsula and get rid of the dinosaurs, which you all know about. So we don't want to have rocks thrown at us. So the planet, all the governments of the planet are looking at this math interface as being a correct way to communicate, stop wars on planet Earth, as well as communicate with ET when they show up. And as many of you who do the research and get on the internet know that there's probably a lot of different ETs already influencing this planet with all of our little toys that we have, our cell phones and computers and TVs. So it is relevant. The school systems in China are adapting our quantum program. All the universities and colleges are going to be teaching it this year. As a result of these patents that came out from my 23 days in China, they realized that they were going to order all 150 trade partners to follow suit. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do business with China. The biggest new thing that's coming on the market is the word lithium. Lithium makes for the batteries. Now, China currently controls 80% of the lithium on planet Earth. 20%, the other 20% was known to be in Mount Weld in Australia, better known as the Linus mine. It's a 1 cubic mile of lithium that they've uncovered. Colombia, 3 years ago, somebody wanted to find out how big the salt flats were. So they drilled down 15 meters into the salt. And they found a 25 square mile lithium, a pure lithium bed of lithium. Enough lithium for the next 200 years to build about 600 billion automobile batteries. Yeah. So now if you add thorium to lithium, you can get 8 times more power out of the same size battery. Think of an ordinary car battery made out of lithium thorium that would have the power to drive a car 400 miles with a 4-minute recharge. That's all. Now, that's technology. I know battery technology. I built my first perpetual motion motor when I was 16 years old, my first laser beam when I was 12. I've been on the cutting edge of weird, futuristic stuff ever since I was a little kid. And if you do enough research on me, you're going to find out that I was taken when I was 8 years old. I went into a UFO for 3.5 hours. They put a machine on top of my head. And whatever they did to me, they put all this information into my head. And why I've been able to build this program without any interruptions from anybody for the last 32 years. And I fielded over 100,000 questions at seminars. And I haven't missed any. So you cook up the best question you can think of, and I'll tell you the facts. I'll tell you the facts going all the way back 8,500 years and how it's going to influence all the cross-referencing with it. People go like, that's impossible. You can't know that kind of information. This is, ask me the question. We'll find out. Now, I did a seminar in Bellingham, Washington. I had 86 people in the audience, and I told everyone, I says, I'm going to answer all your questions today. And one gentleman on my right side here, he stands up. He was about 75 years old. And he says, that's a pretty bold statement. He says, you don't know what kind of questions we're going to ask. So how can you say you know all of our answers? I said, tell you what, you be the official question counter. I says, and you count how many questions I'm going to answer in the next 2 days. So he went ahead and he counted, and at the end of 5 o'clock on Sunday, he stands up and he says, well, that was impressive. You answered 125 questions successfully, including history, and I agreed with every answer you gave. He says, I got two more questions. He says, who is God? He says, well, that's probably the easiest question I've been asked since I started this. Now, remember I said at the beginning of this seminar, what is a thought? Hold a thought in your hand. A thought is not of this world. Okay, everyone in this room studies this word God. Matter of fact, we have 5,000 different sounds of words for the word God. It's a very unique word. Now, you also, when you study God, you also study the devil, or what evil is. So it's called perspective. You have to know what's good and you have to know what's bad. So you have an understanding of what choice is. Now, because you have choice, you can choose to be a good person or a bad person. Now, everyone in this room, you will read different books at different ages, at different times. You will talk to different people, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your ministers at the school, at the church, teachers. And all through life, you accumulate information. The end result is we all have 1,000 separate definitions that we have accumulated to answer one word. So, and that word, God, because you all have 1,000 different sources of research to answer that one word, now says that God has created man's image. Image, imagination, creation, art. So each one of you formulates your own definition based on your own subjective interpretation of your own educational capacity, your own IQ. IQ is based on the amount of percentage of your brain activity that you use for thinking. To come to a conclusion, to stand in front of a mirror, look at yourself and say, I know who God is, based on these definitions. And no one, I don't care who you are, can tell you who your God is because they weren't there for your 1,000 points of study. And everyone in this room has a different 1,000 points of study to answer the same word. And you also have 1,000 points of study to answer the bad things. What is evil? What is wrong? What is a lie? It's called perspective. So we all choose to be good. We all choose to be correct. And we all choose to stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself and say, I know who God is. And I believe in that person. Or I believe in that entity. And that's the definition of who God was. And everyone in the audience applauded. Because who is it? It's your own subjective interpretation of what you understand that word to mean, based on your ability to look yourself in the eye and say, I accept this to be the fact. And that's as simple as it gets. He says, okay, he says we all agree that that's the definition. He's got one more word for you. What do you know about women? And I says, absolutely nothing. He says, see, you can't answer every question. And 38 women stood up and said, that's the right answer. And all the men in the audience applauded. We're going to go through a sentence structure now. The first part of a sentence, we use the word for. If you look at my website, it's 400 pages long. Every sentence starts with the word for as the preposition. We use the as a neutral article. You have, when it comes to articles, or what we call lodio, we'll put a square bracket because this means no contract. You have a, and, the, this, these. Those are the 5 that I use in my program. Pretty simple. It seems how you have 38 articles and we only use 5. Second part is there's a consequence. Now, a consequence is a fact. In other words, I stand here and I look at this room and I have knowledge. My knowledge allows me to understand people, tables, chairs, architectural structures. I specialize in 115 different fields. Being an engineer, background, metallurgy, heat treat specialist, chemist, biotech, medical fields. I understand medical fields. I can look at every part of this building. I'm a master mason, bricklayer, concrete, lay tile, carpeting 6,000 yards, I hold knowledge of 180 different fibers used in carpeting, chemistry to put those things together, what your clothes are made out of, cotton, wool, polyester, rayon, all the different combinations of that, whether it be the coefficient of expansion, allows me the metals, gases, chemicals from all the different parts of the periodic table and how they're used to create different elements. I was the cook for Chemtron electrodes, made super metals, stuff that never was ever heard of before. 1988, I wrote the math interface on all metals. Was called the polymer technology, proving that all metal is plastic, that all glass is plastic, that all plastic is plastic. And so the consequences of having knowledge creates a cause. As we get older, we acquire more and more knowledge, which allows us to understand the consequences of the facts. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to think. Thinking, I'll put that in ing. Thinking is a verb, which is motion. Now, running is not a verb. Jumping is not a verb. Driving is not a verb. And thinking, you have to think before you can do all these things. Order of operations, folks. You always have to follow the order of operations to have a legal contract. Even writing a sentence. Writing a sentence is not see the pen. See is a pronoun, the is an adverb, making pen a verb. That's a second grade reader. See the ball. See Jack run. See is an adverb, making now run to Jack to be an adjective of the word run, which is a pronoun, which means nothing. You say, these are first grade readers. They're a complete lie. Don't get your kids tied up in that. You want to teach them how to read? Go to my website. That'll really fry them. 4, when you think, okay, we look, this is, we'll put this to be sight, or see. You see stuff, and you need a see. You need a C C treaty. You need a SEA pass. C pass means that you can move a vessel in a sea of space. So when you have knowledge, you have these positions that you're going to see and absorb points of information. You hear points of information. You're using your 5 senses to absorb information. And with that information, we then store it as a computer. So the consequences is a storage. Just like a computer. And we keep all this information in until we're asked a question. Then you go into motion. Just like when you enter in the keyboard. You might put stuff in, it's going to store it. When you want it out, you hit enter, ask it a question, you hit enter, and it does a search. It goes thinking, and now it gives you a claim. With is a possession. Possessive, which becomes your claim. Now, claims are, you only have 2 different things. You either have a plus or a minus. You're either going to have an award, you're going to have a value. See, the word A means no award, W-A-R-D. Award. Now, the word award is because the contract is written in adverb verb, means you get nothing. You might get a future tense, futuristic Federal Reserve note. Or you might get a promise, pay to, in future time, which is a pronoun adverb scenario. But you don't have any now time facts. So therefore, with the possessive, you possess a claim. The claim has to be defined. So we're going to go here 5 of the contract. Now the contract has to be of the contract terms. Number 6 is with the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar. Okay, what does that mean? Well, there's a thing, you hear the word right, you hear the word truth. Truth is an opinion, by the way. Everybody believes in God, that's your truth, but that truth is based on your opinion of subjective interpretation, so therefore truth is an opinion. And O means no, and PIN means to attach, and ION is contract. So you have no attached contract because your subjective interpretation of your ability to communicate with any other individual is based on that other person's ability to understand what you're saying in the first place, which is babble. Because it's all adverb-verb scenario. Now, I may be talking to you in adverb-verb because that's the only language you understand. If I stood up here and talked to you and for this knowledge of this individual is with the claim of the correct parse, syntax, grammar, start using prepositional phrases, this would not jar well with your perception. And you'd kind of get lost. So it takes about 200 hours to adapt to this technology. And you will get a migraine headache because you're all brainwashed not to see an article. You might think that's a joke. It's not. Sublimic messaging through TV, radio, newspapers and magazines, school books have been there your whole life, right in front of you. We hide it in plain view, just like we hide a flag in plain view, and we cancel this contract by putting a Coke can on top of the staff, which is a phoenix in this case. If the wingtips are down, it's a phoenix. If they're up, it's an eagle, which is postal. So you can either be under postal guise or you can be under the Vatican guise. Either way, you're under somebody's guise, G-U-I-S-E. It's not a disguise, it's a guise, G-U-I-S-E. Dis meaning no, guys. This means no, by the way. Finally, number 7 is by the author. Authority. Authentic. Authorization. And what's the symbol for gold on the periodic table? AU. He who holds the gold makes the rules, has the authority. Ever wonder why gold was the key? Why it was AU and not something else? Because gold is spelled G-O-L-D, not AU, but AU is authority. And throughout history, gold has been the medium, going all the way back to the beginning. About 8,500 years ago, they decided that gold, because of its beauty and both its ability to withstand tarnishment, would be used as a standard metal on this planet. It's also an industrial metal because gold is a molecule that you can make a 128 gigabyte circuit board on a 20 nano chip. And a single atom of gold can be a transistor, a capacitor, a diode, based on its configuration and where it appears in the circuit board. They would build a circuit board against that wall with 128 gigabytes of information on it, and then photocopy it onto a 20 nano chip, and then grow that in a cloud chamber of argon, and that's how they would build those chips. So that's how technology, and then he's just stack them together. Everything's done with laser welding, electron beam welding, because the computers are unique. They build themselves now. A 1/4 inch green 1/4 inch quartz crystal run by 2 green holographic lasers are an 800 gigabyte processor with a 64 terabyte memory capacity. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. Information is recorded inside a quartz crystal. Our human brain is a 500 terabyte capacitor. That's what you're rated for, 500 terabytes. And these little puppies are only 1/4 inch, and they have thousands of 1 full square inch, which are 64 times 64, which would be 30, 3,600 trillion capacity per crystal. And they have thousands of these banks of information run on green holographic lasers. Computers are building computers today. They have advanced art. We've had artificial intelligence to make determinations about what a lawsuit is and how it's run at the United States Supreme Court for 12 years now. About 2000s when they implemented the artificial intelligence to make decisions. And when the computer figures out that we're the virus, enough said about that. So, these are the parts of what a sentence is. Now, a sentence has to be written frontwards and backwards. If you notice, we have for of, is, with of, with, by. Now, after the with of, we can have as many of these, like I have one sentence in the book, last page of the book here. This is my book. It's 96 pages long. It's written in 9-point print. It's the only book in the world that's written in quantum language. I have no competition. I have no plagiarizers anywhere on the planet. It's kind of unique to be one source of 8 billion people and nobody's giving me any competition. I have a monopoly on this thing, virtually. And it isn't because I have a monopoly. It's because it's so unique. The condition of math, the condition of a fact in a world of 8 billion fictions is so unique that it stands alone and there's no plagiarizing. All the judges, all the attorneys on planet Earth in all languages have been ordered to search history. Go into the archives of written history going back 8,500 years. Is this an original program? The answer was yes. This whole thing is 100% original. That there's never been anything like it on the planet for communication skills. So the books took me, this is 8,000 hours or 80,000 hours of my work put in 96 pages. This is part of it. All the new stuff is updated on the internet, on my website. But this gives you about an 80% solid base that you can hold in your hand and read. And it takes about 200 hours. I charge $200 for the books because they're the only ones like it on the planet. There's no competition for it. So they're very unique. People that have them guard them. They don't treat them like garbage, like the local newspaper, because when you put value on something, it becomes valuable. If I gave you this marker, you'd use it, put it down, and walk away. If I charge you $200 for this marker, you'd put it in a glass jar, put it up on your fireplace, and say, "That's valuable." You know, because of what it means to you. Education is the same way. If you go to college and you pay for an education, you put value on it, you stay awake in class. If somebody else gives you a scholarship and your schooling is free, you sleep through class. Or you put a tape recorder and say, "I'll study later," but you don't learn anything. Yes?
So does it teach you how to write sentences or to read?
Yeah, it's got all that. As a matter of fact, the back of the cover page, this is the key to the book. This one page took 6 years of my life to write, 12,000 hours of study. To go and travel all over the United States. I spent a great deal of time in the fifth basement under the Philadelphia Library. It's a top secret library facility with books that go back 600-700 years. And once I get into the old books, I can syntax 2/3 of all the missing words. What's unique about what I do is you can put anything in front of me and I can tear it apart and tell you what it meant, what the condition of thinking of the individual was, how it cross-referenced with history, and then rewrite it in the correct format, showing you the secrets that were built inside of each word through the parse and the right way that the math shows that the sentence should have been written. Even if a person wrote a sentence incorrect, I've memorized the book on synonyms, the book of parse, the dictionary, Encyclopedia Britannica, World Book, Rules of Trusts writing, and with that amount of cross-referencing as a historian, also did 12 years on genealogy, knowing where the planet started from, and how the different ethnic groups have moved across the planet with 13 tribes and how they've interfaced with each other. So my my background is very unique. I sleep 3 hours a day. I didn't sleep for 8 years completely. I was, for those who don't know, I died on December 3rd, 1975. I had my right kidney removed. Both of my adrenal glands were surgically removed by a South Korean doctor in an operation. I had gotten sick. My right kidney was killed I was caught in the 1968 riots in Milwaukee, and they kicked my right kidney like you tee a football off 7 times. I got pinned down by 8 boys. After I got out of work, I had arrested one of them for shoplifting. I worked at Sears and Roebuck. I was 18 years old. So his little gang of guys jumped me when I got out of work at 9 o'clock at night, and they tried to kill me. They killed my right kidney. And it took 7 years before it finally knocked me down. Even though it was dead inside me, my body had created a callus around the kidney. It was about the size of my fist, and it was just black tissue. Because of the poison leaking into my system, it created a super immune system fighting this poison on a full-time basis for 7 years. When they removed that, the doctor, who had never operated on a human being before, cut my right adrenal gland out with it because it's attached to the kidney. Then he thought he was supposed to remove my left kidney, which was healthy. So he cut that in half and took out my left adrenal gland and half my left kidney. Well, it left me, I went into anesthesia shock, and I was flatlined. I died on the operating table. They couldn't jump start me, and I wound up in a morgue, cut in half with my heart hanging out of my chest for 35 minutes without a heartbeat. I mean, it's in plain view, the coroner and the nurses down there. And then as soon as they signed my death certificate, according to the coroner, they had an exact time and location. So whatever the future event took place, they had a recording of an individual in a morgue at an exact point in time with an exact match, and I was jump-started. My heart started beating, and they rushed me back upstairs, and they put me back together. I woke up 2 hours out of surgery and stayed awake for 8 consecutive years, going to school full-time and working 2 full-time jobs. I walked out of the hospital in 72 hours. Recovery time is 2 weeks for the loss of a kidney, and I walked out in 72 hours. So I got on this kick of studying. I was going to save my own life because I only had half of one kidney, and he said I'd be dead in 3 years. Well, I'm 63 years old now. I was born on September 17th, 1949, and I haven't aged in 35 years. I stopped aging when my kidney. See, what happens is 2 years ago in London, they discovered the gene that causes aging in the human being. When I died when I was 25, my aging genes and my cells died also, and my DNA, according to what the doctors have been able to surmise. So my aging gene, because it's gone, I stopped aging at the age of 25. I've probably aged 5 years in the last 38 years. So like my cousin who was 114, I probably will live to still be young like this when I'm 100 years old, which would be cool. But it's with this program being as unique as it is, and so important to the existence of this planet and all species on this planet. It's unique that I was chosen with this as a meek person. Now, what does the word meek mean to you? Some people say it means timid or shy or weak. The word meek means I have absolute power over all things on the planet. And I have discretion. In other words, I'm a teacher. That's what the word meek means, that I have absolute power, but I teach people. I don't hurt people with this technology. Even though I am the judge-prosecutor, because the judges are the ones that go out and harvest the people, I sit down with the judges and I say, listen, here's your signed confession. You can choose 30 years in prison, or you're the guy that created, you buried the bodies, now go dig them up. Or retire. That's it. You got 3 choices. Because if you think you're going to continue, ain't going to happen. So, and that's unique. And I have a lot of people all the way across the world at the top of the food chain, ambassadors, presidents. I was elected King of Hawaii in June of 1997. That's not a joke. The 72 Hawaiian families got together, and they elected me the King of Hawaii. But I am a king over one thing: parse, syntax, grammar. Now, grammar controls contract. So all contracts, treaties, and trusts with the United States government and the Postal Service are a result of what is written on paper. I don't interfere with any culture on planet Earth. I don't interfere with any political organization, religious beliefs, nothing. My sole purpose is contract. What is a preposition? What is an article? What is a fact? Or I should rephrase it. What is a position? What is a lodial? What is a fact? So when I was elected king, I was a king of contracts. That anybody, any two people, any two tribes within the Hawaiian 72 tribes. Same thing with the 1,200 Maori tribes and the 3,460 tribes of Australia. I hold those positions also. That I was elected into a position and adopted by their tribal councils to be in charge of contracts. And countries all over the world have asked me for help in the suppression that they've suffered from one country taking over their country. Take Ireland, for instance. In July, I did a radio show for the Irish Republic on their by internet radio. It was supposed to be a 20-minute spot, lasted 2 hours and 45 minutes. When I got off the radio, the next day my phone rang, and it was the Irish Parliament called me and said, "Could you write a constitution for us?" And they said, how much time do you need? 3-4 months, they said. I says, how about tomorrow afternoon? They said, you're going to do a constitution for us in one day? He says, yeah. I says, I'll deliver it to you tomorrow. It'll be 59 paragraphs long. And I did. Overnight, I wrote them a constitution, supplied it to the Irish Parliament. They took 2 days to pore over it, voted on it unanimously, took it to the London Parliament, and London Parliament pored over it for 3 days. And in August, I think it was August 2nd of 2011, Ireland received their independence for the first time in 660 years from England. 2 days after that, Queen Elizabeth was on BBC announcing that all United Kingdom constitutions were null and void because I syntaxed them. She pulled my passport for New Zealand and Australia, so I syntaxed their constitution, disqualified the United Kingdom worldwide. When they pulled my Canadian passport, I syntaxed the Magna Carta. It was sold at Christie's of London for $6.7 million as a historical document with no value. When the United States Congress, Senate, Legislature, and Supreme Court gave me a hard time here a couple years ago, I syntaxed the Constitution of the United States of America, wrote a new Constitution for the United Nations. And now the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence is going to be auctioned this year in Washington, D.C., because it's a historical document and has no value. Benjamin Franklin was a triple agent, French attorney working for the English crown to capture the United States and give it back to England, which he was successful in doing through adverb-verb. When I did a seminar in Atlanta, Georgia, for 72 people, we had the senator from Georgia. He came to the seminar along with several Supreme Court judges from Georgia. I said to him, you guys had a civil war down here. And Grant went ahead and he and Lee got together and you guys signed a surrender treaty here. I said, the syntax that's written in adverb-verb doesn't say anything. I says, the southern states are as independent as a Confederate agency as the North is. I says, you guys were never conquered by war. This is Title 28, Section 1359 is collusion. You had a gun to your head to sign a contract. The contract was written in adverb-verb. Both people had a second-grade reading level. You don't have a contract. You know what happened the next day? The Confederate flag was raised above the Capitol in Atlanta, Georgia. Made all the newspapers around the world. And all the southern states put up the the Confederate flag on top of the Capitol buildings. Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana. Everybody's going like, what's going on? It says, you can't surrender to a gun in your face. When the Constitution of the United States ended on November 2nd, 1859, the United States of America did not exist. The South was an independent country. They created the Articles of Confederation. Article was a pronoun, of is an adverb, making confederation a verb. That was a lie. So they don't exist either. It's an illusion. So their illusion versus the United States of America, of is an adverb, making America a verb. Illusion. How does two illusions create a fact? They don't. So therefore, everybody's still independent. And I spell independent, I-N-D, a vowel, two consonants, no contract. Because it's an opinion. So you got 8 billion people with an opinion about where you stand and who you are. So when they put up the flags, the United States Supreme Court came back and said, we don't have jurisdiction. And they were right. And they see, all these years, 150 years went by, and nobody knew what they were doing. Until I stood up and said, hey, the king has new clothes. And everybody knows the king has new clothes story. Question?
Just want to go back to the book. I think on your website, I saw something referencing to some DVDs to study along with the book.
All the DVDs from every seminar I've done since 1999 are on the internet. Free. Just type in David Windmiller videos. Anything you want. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, Google, AOL, Yahoo. I can't even think of all the rest of them. They're up there. Gmail. And you'll get all the videos you want. There's 200 hours of different videos, seminars. There's the Facebook has got the 17-hour series from Australia. I went down there. That's when they pulled my visa. You see, I'm a federal judge in New South Wales, Australia, Auckland, New Zealand, and also a full barrister with the British United Kingdom. Now, I was awarded that because they couldn't win. They lost 129 cases to me. I've indicted 129 of their judges. And they don't know what to do with me, so they had to make me a barrister and a federal judge, thinking that that would be okay, you know. Well, the very last trial I was at, in the Land Environmental Court, the judge stood up 4 times and bowed to me. All of the lawyers coming and going in the courtroom during the time of the 1.5-hour presentation I put on in front of 4 TV cameras. I mean, these are the big TV cameras they had in the room there, which were broadcasted all over Australia to all the courthouses so that they could watch. And then I told the judge, I says, you know, Judge, you've been on the bench 28 years. But you're the new kid on the block. You got pulled for this duty, and you've only been sitting on the bench here in Land Environmental for 3 days. I says, and they set you up to come in front of me because they knew what I was going to do, and none of the other judges that were older than you wanted to get caught in my crosshairs. And I says, I'm the only judge in this court. I says, that seal you got behind you is a good cartoon. I called it a cartoon. The judge turns around and looks at it and says, yeah, it's a cartoon. The first day I was in court with these people, underneath the seal of all the courts, they have a ribbon. The ribbon has words on it. Between the words, they have dots. Because it's a seal, a dot is used in 2 locations under syntax. On a seal, it's used as a prepositional phrase. On money, it's used as a prepositional phrase because of the restriction of space. So the dot between words, in other words, if I were to have a word here, if I put it here, it's called a period. But if I put it in the middle, that's a prepositional phrase. So if I did this, and I said for the possession, this would be for the width of the with the possession. Each dot would represent a prepositional phrase. And that's syntax, folks. I says, Judge, you're here talking to me in adverb verb. You're here filing paperwork in adverb verb, and yet your seal on the back of the wall says you are advertising syntax, which means you have to be correct. Otherwise, you're guilty of perjury by signed confession. I says, and I handed you a correct parse syntax grammar lawsuit, and I am the only federal judge, and I held up my oath, in Australia. I have the only correct written contract in front of you. I says, so I have the flag, I have the oath, and I have the paperwork, and the paperwork is the court, and I signed the stamp. Where's your signed stamp? I'm postmaster, banker, and judge of this courtroom. Judge stands up and bows to me. And after the fourth bow, he walked out of the courtroom, bowed to me backwards, surrendering the court to me as a chief federal judge of Australia. Then I went up to see the Supreme Court, and they locked me out. So they wouldn't even. And then 2 weeks ago, I was in Honolulu, Hawaii. I walked in the federal building, and the guard goes, "You're Judge David Wynn Miller." And I goes, "Yeah." He says, "I got a flyer on you." He says, "You're not allowed in the building." He says, he got on the radio and he called the marshals. He says, "You can only be in the building if the marshals are escorting you." So I had 5 more, the guys that run the metal detectors, 5 more sheriffs come walking over. And they're all standing there in front of me with their arms folded. I says, "I must really be a dangerous person in your courthouse here." He says, "Well, you're here to arrest our judges." I says, "Yeah, I have warrants for 33 judges in your courthouse, signed by the United States Supreme Court and the World Court at The Hague. I'm the chief judge of Hawaiian Islands, federal judge." I says, "You guys are only district, which is demon god of the underworld for trickery judges." I says, "So you don't have any standing here." I says, "I've got the only standing." I says, "Not only that, you anchored your vessel, which is your courthouse building, on our island." He says, "I'm the elected king of Hawaii, and you've got your vessel anchored on my island. Do you have a drogue law?" That means to anchor. "In the correct parse syntax grammar to anchor your vessel on my island?" "I don't think so." "Do you have a sea pass, SEE, to pass through our borders? Do you have a sea treaty, SEA, to move your vessel amongst the sea of space?" "You don't have any of these treaties?" It means you're trespassing. I says, "And I've got warrants for your arrest." So then 3 marshals come down. "Yeah, what are you doing here?" I says, "Well, I'm here to see the U.S. attorney here in the courthouse." I says, "I'm going to indict Judge Kobayashi over in Maui for treason." "All right, we're going to have to escort you upstairs." So I get off the elevator. There's 5 more marshals, 2 City of Honolulu sheriffs, and 2 City of Honolulu police officers, plus 5 rent-a-cops. So we got 14 people standing in front of me. I said, "That must be a really dangerous guy. You're here to we're going to have you indicted for harassing our judges." I'm going, "Well, first off, they're not judges. They don't have an oath of office. Number 2, I have warrants for their arrest. Number 3, all of you gentlemen standing in front of me don't have an oath of office to carry a gun or a badge." I says, "I syntaxed it." I says, "I have my oath with me." I says, "And I was elected as the king in this, so I have diplomatic immunity. I'm a sovereign. I'm the only sovereign in the United States. I have my own country. My own country, and guess what the land of my country is? The land of the courtroom during the time of contract. No one has ever claimed the land of the courtroom during the time of contract. So every courtroom I go into on planet Earth is my country on planet Earth because I was appointed to me through the United Nations, where all 200 countries treated with me, saying, when you come into a courtroom, you are the senior chief judge under land of the contract, and because your contracts are written in quantum grammars, which creates the constitution of the land of the contract. The courtroom. And the courtroom is not a geographical location. It's paper, folks. The land of paper is the contract. Because the contract of paper is not bonded to the room is just a point of convenience. So, what is a courtroom? A courtroom is a piece of paper. And the words on the paper are the thoughts. Hold a thought in your hand, show me the three-dimensional object of the thought. So therefore, the understanding of the courtroom is the correct parse syntax grammar on paper in a geographical location that is neutral, called the land of the courthouse, or the land of the courtroom. Now, let's say we were in court today, and every person in this room sat here in front of me with a different contract, one for divorce, one for trespassing, one for shoplifting, one for traffic, drunk driving, underage. and as a result of that, does your contract for traffic have anything to do with his divorce or his marriage or his trespassing? The answer is no. So each one of your paper contracts that you have is a vessel in a sea of space. And your name is on that document. Therefore, that is your bill of lading, your passport to be in the closed area called court. And the condition, the contract, the words on that document, if they're written in adverb verb, say nothing. Therefore, they're called art, A-R-T. Vowel and two consonants, no contract. How do you spell ink? I-N-K. I-N means no, K is knowledge. You have no knowledge because you put ink on paper in adverb verb. They've been advertising in plain view to all of us throughout your entire life. And just like all the pictures on the wall here, they're all in a box, which is called framing. And framing is a box under four corners, which is an enclosed area and can't be considered, so you can't be insulted by any one of the pictures or have any subjective interpretation as to the condition of what the people look like because they're in a box. The lawyers and the attorneys and this whole thing about syntax is in front of you every place you go and everything you do, all the time. The unique thing is that we are here, and I'm talking to you in real time, and we're all on the same plane, P-L-A-N-E. That means you can see me and you can hear me. Now, sheet of paper. I just disappeared. You can't see me anymore. I'm on a stage. Even though it's 0.02 of an inch thick, called a piece of paper, I changed my plane. I just disappeared. Now I'm on a stage. On a stage, you can't see me. You can't hear me. You can't be insulted by me in any way, shape, or form. It's only your subjective interpretation as to what you see and hear now. That's why actors, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 44.1, all judges are actors. And they're on a different plane than you are. Therefore, you can't see them or hear them. That's why they're immune, because they haven't said anything or done anything. Now, who sits in front of the actor on the stage? The clerk of the court with a computer. Now, what do you see her do? The whole time the judge is up there with his computer screen. He's typing here like this. He's telling the judge what to do because she's on your plane and she's the puppet master and he's the actor being told what to do. So the clerk of the court, who takes the paper? Right. Who takes the clerk of the court takes your money, gives you a receipt. That's called banking. You go to the bank, the teller at the bank takes your money, cancels your check, gives you money, which is doing a transaction. Just like ordering food at a restaurant. You order your food, the waitress writes it down on a piece of paper, which is a bill of lading, takes it back, brings out your food, gives you a receipt. With your MasterCard, you sign it. If it's cash, you take it up to the cash register. You do banking. She gives you a receipt. You give her money. You pay for your cargo. You go to the court, hand her the vessel. You see a space? The vessel comes to the port of the court. The vessel gets docked. Therefore, we put a docket number on it, docking the vessel. You pay $350 docking fee, and now you have a document. DOC, DOC, DOC. You see, we're using the terminology and bringing things into first-person knowledge now. So you're aware of what's happening. When the document comes to the port of the court, the document has a stamp on it. The stamp is autographed by the postmaster delivering the vessel to the port of the court, who also puts a stamp on and signs it. Therefore, we have postmaster to postmaster docking a vessel. The vessel is an independent. Now, this is something some of you know or don't know. All judges are actors. They do not become a judge until they autograph this document. If they autograph the stamp of this document, then they are the judge on the case. A judge who does not sign this document is not a judge. When you walk into the courtroom, the judge is up there and says, "Did you sign the paper?" The judge says, "No." That's not the judge. That's an actor. "Who did sign your paper?" The clerk of the court did. She's the judge. So you can say, "Judge, you're not on my plane. Get out of my courtroom." Now, when I walk into a courtroom, I walk in there and it says, "Judge, you're excused." I'm going like, this is a state court. I'm in charge. I said, "Bailiff, I deputize you as my tip staff. Arrest the judge for trespassing in my courtroom. I have a federal oath. I have a federal oath of office. I have it in my possession. I've signed the stamp. I'm on a federal plane. That's a federal flag. This is a federal court. We're here for money. This document says there's money on it. This stamp is $1 stamp on it. This is postal money. We're in a postal vessel in dry dock under a postal stamp. This is a federal flag." I says, "This vessel has jurisdiction and I have an oath of office that matches this contract. I am the only standing federal judge in this courtroom. Arrest that man as an imposter." That judge is usually running out the door as fast as he can get before the bailiff can get a hold of him. Then I turn and I says, I've syntaxed the district attorney's paperwork here, and now I'm prosecuting the district attorney for a $25 million fine and 30 years in prison for false and misleading statements to damage a citizen. And about that time, he's running out the door. And if he's standing his ground, then I got the bailiff arresting him. And if you've been in court and you've seen this happen and that, you're going like, never seen that before. The other attorneys do the same thing. When I was in Australia, we did this. And a district attorney, my client was a dwarf, stood 3 feet 9 inches tall. And when she walked in there, everybody kind of got out of her way. And I was there, and the judge goes, "Are you a representative?" And he says, "No, sir, I'm a claimant." "Well, who's that?" And he says, "She owns the property. I'm a claimant on her property." "Well, you're not on title." I syntaxed a mortgage contract for New South Wales. I says, "It's false and misleading." I says, "Because I syntaxed, I'm a claimant on the document for false and misleading statements. I syntaxed the prosecuting attorneys who wants to foreclose her property. This man has committed a felony against this court. He's got a second grade reading level. Doesn't have an oath of office. He's not a barrister. I don't know what he is, but he's got a wig on. He looks like a clown, personally." And this guy is like, "How can you talk to me like that?" I says, "Because I'm a federal judge in New South Wales, and I have a federal oath, and we're in a state court, mind you." And I says, "And as a state," it says, "you may be a state judge, but you're not on our plane, therefore you've not come to court. Clerk of the courts," I says, "I hereby deputize you as my clerk." I says, "Bailiff," I says, "you're now my tip staff." I says, "This is a federal court. Arrest this person for treason against the people. Arrest the judge for impersonation." And the judge stands up and goes, "We're going to continue this for another 45 days. I said, "You can't continue anything. I already arrested you guys. You're out of the picture." And this guy turns to these 12 barristers sitting behind him and he goes like, "This guy just handed my head to me in a basket." He goes, "Do something." And they all took their coats and pulled them over their heads, and they all talking through their coats going, "He's your problem." When you file a lawsuit, this is just a copy of one of my oaths. What I do is, We have a stamp on one side because it has value. We have a flag making it federal. And this is an authentic oath, and I think this one is for, this is my Hawaiian oath of office. And this makes me a federal judge in Hawaii. And when you put value on the front, you have to endorse the top of the back, just like you endorse the top of your checks at the court. I mean, at the bank. Now, the reason, what is an endorsement? Okay, we write. Now, if this was 75 feet long, we'd call this, as a single document, we'd be bonded. We roll it all up, called a scroll. And so now that it's been rolled up, we put the wax seal on here, going all the way back 6,700 years, and the king would then use the ring to put the seal on. And the ring, the seal, was the same as an autograph. And when you unwrap it, the seal is at the top of the back of the value. Therefore, you have an endorsement. That's been practiced for 6,700 years without fail. So therefore, it's legitimate. And question?
How do you sign your name?
It's like that.
Just like
No, I don't sign it. This is called an autograph. Autograph. The colon is for the David-Win of the Miller family. My degree sign is because I'm a 92nd degree Mason. The Masons all over the world have said the Masonry stops at 34 degrees. How can you be a 92nd? Well, the different cities I traveled to, and I've been in over 1,200 of them, have challenged me, have come to meetings, have gone to lodges. And when the Masons and I get together, they bring their books. I have my books. I have the Legenda, 1859, signed by me in 1859. And that's another story you don't know about. Yeah, your question?
You mentioned the continuance of 45 days that the judge wanted to do. It reminded me of a question that I have. I just happened to be in the Cod County Court one day as a just spectator. And it was a different setting. There was a couple of attorneys on this side, or one attorney on this side, and then their high-powered clients. And then there was an attorney on this side, and another guy in a suit and tie. And for some reason, when the judge walked in, they were all prepared to rise. He goes, "No, just stay seated."
Did he have his robe on?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, the robe means I'm mourning justice.
What does it mean?
He's in mourning for justice, because justice is dead.
In this conversation, you could kind of tell they all did just on this inside track. And the one attorney asked for a 90-day continuance.
45 and 45 is 90.
And then the judge goes, "Well, if I did as I wanted to, I would continue it for 122 days. And they all laughed. Every one of them.
Laughed?
Yeah, it was like this big chuckle. They all knew what he meant by it, except for me. I didn't know what was going on. That's my question. This was on September 6th. The 122 days come, if I count all the days, comes out to January 6th, 2013.
Okay, you got 45 days, trust law, offer, 45-day answer. The state court?
County.
State court.
Okay.
Then you've got, that's 90. If you add 45 to that, you get 135. So that doesn't work. So what they're doing is, there's a 10-day offer, a 10-day answer, a 20-day answer, and a 10-day response. That gives you 120, and then you've got your 3-day rescission law. That would make it 123 days, which would expire. So he had to make it at 122 days. So he was under the 1-day limit under the rescissions law. Otherwise, he'd be in violation of notice. This is an offer. This is an acceptance. These are two 45-day trusts running. This is a vacated contract on its face.
Okay, then
It's not legal.
later in the conversation, you lightly mentioned it again, and you said because then it would be under the new judge reading.
Okay, what you have here is this. You have a, everybody okay with this, or do you want to get into more of this? Huh?
I have one more question. With the colons in front of the name,
Oh, that's a prepositional phrase for the David
right?
hyphen Wynn, full colon, which means for the David Wynn of the Miller family.
If you don't have the colon in front and you do it like David dash Wynn, colon,
This is a pronoun in front. If you leave out the colon, this is a pronoun of the Miller, which means this is a nothing of the Miller family. So therefore, it's a mistake. So you got to put it in there. There's 528 symbols in the under Microsoft. If you get in your computer, you can look them all up and pull them up on the screen. It's probably a good 3-year study on symbols if you want to get into it. We use like the address. Like my address in Milwaukee. This is a tilde, hyphen, tilde, hyphen, and then Milwaukee. This is a tilde. Milwaukee is not the name, it's a location. Wisconsin, it's a location. And you put tildes. Tilde means location. Anybody want to correspond with me and by letter or mail me things? That's where you send it. David Wynn Miller, 5166 North 63rd Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53218. That's my address.
What would happen if you put a hyphen between the tilde and Milwaukee? Would that be wrong?
No, you don't. Not here. When you start, you just use your tilde. Now here would be, this is a comma, hyphen, tilde. Microsoft will also give you, will say this is correct. If you drop off the hyphen, you're going to get an underlining, which means you're using the wrong symbolizations. So you got to have a comma. Now, when you write the state, this is a letter, this is a number. These are two different entities. You don't, even though this might be a WIP or WI dot for postal codes, whenever you go from a word to a number, like this here, you don't need the, this actually has have to have a hyphen here too. But from the number to the street, you can use the hyphen. You can put a tilde here or not put a tilde here. It's irrelevant. But it's,
I've seen that.
you'll get a flag on it from the computer if it's wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, Microsoft took, Bill Gates back in 1995 when I went public. Anybody using prepositional phrases, even writing a single legal sentence from my book on the internet would kill your computer. And for about 18 months, they were frying computers left and right. But there was so few people back in 1995. It was only in a few hundred people that were actually involved. And then so I went to Seattle, Washington. I met with Bill Gates, and I said, listen, you got 47 million people on your website, and your contract for Microsoft is a complete adverb verb lie. Feeling lucky today under Title 15, Section 1692E, under false and misleading statements for a $25 million fine per person. Put the antivirus in there and take it out. So a couple days later, no more problems. So then computers upgraded, right? People that had the old computers, and I've got a couple of the old ones from 1995, where the antivirus never went in. It's still trapped in the hard drive. If you plug it into a new computer, it'll kill it. It'll actually start on fire. I'm serious. And some of the old computer hackers go, that can't happen. So they fried up 2 computers going, we ain't going to take your new one and cook it. But there's a few of the old dinosaurs still laying around with that old virus, that old secret virus laying in it. But nobody uses 95 computers anymore. I got the old 86 processor yet, someplace in my basement.
So I got a question.
Okay, shoot.
What does that do for us if we autograph our name that way?
Well, as soon as you autograph your name in that manner, it says that you've been exposed to this technology. All the judges know, all the judges in the United States, 11,000, both state and federal, have been trained in this technology for 17 years. I've been teaching at Scottsdale, Arizona since 1995 and Reno, Nevada at the Judge Institutes through both video and my program, both on the internet and in the books. They're made aware. Every year we pass out the books to the judges here in New Zealand, Australia, England, United Nations. They get copies of my books so they can stay up to speed on what's happening. Federal government, the FBI's got a huge file on me. My passport has about 40 pages of credentials on it for all the treaties I have worldwide with all the different countries, banking, ambassadorships, lawsuits. And usually when I go through customs, it's going in and out of countries. I got to book like 4 hours between flights because it takes 2 to 3 hours for the immigrations people to go through my files before they allow me to pass through. It's getting more and more difficult to move around. I usually call them ahead of time so they can run my passport and pull stuff up, so when I get there they are fully aware of why I'm there and what I'm doing in the different countries I go to. So, questions?
So if I have been using my autograph without the colon in front in my court papers, and I start using it, will the judge start listening to me?
Yeah. Yeah. See, if I wrote my name in cursive, like that, the word cursive, the word curse, to talk to dead people. And this is an adjective pronoun. This is also classified as italic, which means it's removed from the paper, so it's blank.
So when I autograph my paper, I should print it like you have done?
Correct. You do it like this.
Okay, so
But if you're not a Mason, don't put the degree sign on there. I do that, but they're fully aware of that.
So my autograph should be printed upper lowercase.
Everybody should be printing. This was taught to you. When I was a kid in school, they cracked my knuckles with rulers because I would write what I would write correct. They made it mandatory that everybody use cursive because they wanted you to disqualify your contract by using cursive, by dead language. And then they've got this one. Everybody know that little one? This is an adverb. This is a verb. I swear to talk to dead people in the future tense to make fiction, the being an adverb with no contract of an opinion, so as an adverb to make an illusion, me as a adverb, feel like an adverb today, folks, to modify the verb God. which is incorrect. Now, when, for those, I don't know how many of you know about the 1996 seminar I did in Indianapolis, Indiana for 47 ministers. Broke my own rules. Velma. All right, let's shut my own phone down here. Vibrate only. Okay. In June of 1996, I did a seminar in Indianapolis, Indiana for 47 ministers from 16 different religions. We had Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists. I mean, you talk about a room full of people. And I was to do a 12-hour seminar in front of all these ministers on syntaxing all their different Bibles and conduct this thing for 12 hours and keep peace at the same time. That's somewhat of a... Everybody that looked at that said, "What, are you crazy? That's like walking into a lion's den with steaks hanging all over you." So I went ahead and I walked into the room, and we had a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim sitting next to each other. And within 5 minutes, the three of them talking back and forth were trying to pull the chairs out of the floor and kill each other with them. I mean, they actually had the chairs up and they were ready to hit each other. I go, "Hey, wait a minute, you guys are men of God, right? You're supposed to be compassionate people." I says, "Let me ask you a question before you kill each other. Does 3 plus 3 equal 6? And I want to show of hands, and all 47 hands went up. It says, "Hey, Mr. Jew, why didn't you kill the Christian and the Muslim because 3 plus 3 equals 6? He goes, "Well, that's a math problem." He says, "No one ever went to war over a math problem." I says, "You guys understand that." I says, "Do you know that every single one of you in this room put an adverb in front of the word God?" And everyone all got to think, what does it say? The church of God. Adverb, verb, adverb, verb. The house of God. Church of Christ. Church is a pronoun. It's an adverb making Christ a verb. It says, every condition that you have said here, you've put an adverb in front of your belief. And just like that, everyone in the room goes, "Well, God's not a verb. He's a fact." Just what'd you all put it down in writing for? I mean, you put your signs up in front of well, that's what the lawyers told us to do when they wrote the signs. I says, "Yeah, lawyers are liars. So are attorneys." I says, "The whole thing is to keep you kept in the world of fiction." Now, where did laws come from? Every law in the world came from the religions. The religion came first in the community, in the ministers, the bishops, the cardinals. Anybody who was a church leader, a religious leader, engineered condition of brainwashing for 8,500 years, going back to the beginning of written history. And I took time to do the studies on this, and that's why I can make the statement to everybody. I'm not here to disqualify anybody's religious beliefs. It's just subjective interpretation of knowing how how you got into the situation in the first place. So it's important that all of us are aware of our heritage. And what we're doing is we're bringing things into a mathematical procedure of knowing where the secrets lie. When you're able to learn syntax and get into the Bibles, any Bible you want to choose, and identify those parts of speech and put the missing words in, you're going to see new definitions. And they can be written both frontwards and backwards. And that's the unique thing. The math interface on grammar was very simple. I spent 3 years with all different kinds of different programs in math trying to break this code. And the code was x plus 1 equals 2. 2 minus 1, yeah. So you got x plus 2 equals 3. 3 minus 2 equals 1. 1 equals x. X times 3 equals 6. 6 divided by 3 equals 2. 2 equals x. In other words, we add, subtract, multiply, and divide to find out, by doing math backwards, what the secret is to correct the math. And no one ever went to an oral math problem because they said we just do it backwards and check your math. That was pretty simple. So what I have in my hand here is a pen. I throw that pen up in the air. The motion of thinking didn't change this fact. So motion, and the courts always want you to file motions. But they change the facts with motions because what they're doing is they're modifying the facts with adverbs, creating verbs. But the verb, now they want to say the pen, does an adverb making pen a verb. They want to take this article and change it into something that's not. Therefore, you commit perjury. So if we go back to this problem here, if we have a fact here at the beginning, and we have a fact over here, and we have a fact here, and we have a fact here, this must be a correct program. The thing that appears in front of a fact is a conjunction, which is and or. Those are the only two conjunctions in the English language. What you have in front of that, when you factor them out, is you got a plus 2 and a minus 2, a multiple 3, and a division 3. Okay, when we were in grafting, here's a negative 2 and here's a positive 2. When we go up and down the scale, it's motion. Therefore, we assign the number to a verb, and we factor that out because a verb doesn't have any modification. That's your thinking of a sentence. What is left is add, subtract, multiply, and divide, which are opposite operations, better known as the preposition or the position. What is a position? A position means we will use we're going to have a contract first before we get started. We agree that we're going to use the ABC alphabet to identify this pen or this object. With the ABC alphabet, we're now going to take this object and we're going to spell it pen, P-E-N. What is the pen for? The pen is for writing. So we're going to have a alphabet, a spelling, and a definition. Therefore, we know what the position of this object is. Now, who owns this pen? For my pen, with my pen, of my pen, by my pen. You see, now I can go ahead and identify this because of lodial positioning of ownership, which we used to call the article. But the article, when you had a preposition, it meant you had no position, so you could presume anything. If you had no preposition and no ownership, but an article, which meant no contract, you had a no-no, henceforth a noun. But now we had to change it to a position, lodial fact. With that said, we now have a word that has 900 definitions. I proved that every word in the English language has 900 definitions because we have 68 articles and 68 prepositions and 38 articles. That gives you 1,800. When you multiply it, divided by 2 is 900. So with 900 definitions for a pen, I can say for my pen, for your pen, with my pen, of your pen, of my pen. Every time I change the preposition, I change the definition. I can say his, yours, hers, this, the, a, and. I can keep going through the whole list. Put them all down, cross-reference them all up with the word pen, and I got 900 definitions. Put two definitions together, 900 times 900 is 810,000 variables with 2 words. Put a third one times 900 and you've got 720 million variables. Put a fourth one and you have 640 billion variables. A fifth one, you have 540 trillion variables. They said, well, the computers are only rated for the capacity. Write a 200-word sentence, and we're talking about a number with 200 zeros after it, variables, to write a legal sentence. They're saying that computers don't have enough memory capacity to write one sentence. Try writing a whole book or a 400-page website and do it correct 100% of the time. When you're working in a math problem, you've got to be correct 100% of the time. There is no room for error. You know, they build a space shuttle with 3 million components. It goes to the moon. They screw up with one. Any number of variables, 3 million correct things times 0 still equals 0. That's why the space shuttle blew up in 1983. I was there at ground zero as that thing came over the top of the Kennedy Space Center and blew up right on top of me. To be there at the only one of 50 space shuttle launches to see that one. I was there 4 times to see 4 successful launches. But I got to see that one blow up. You know, it's a rare, I've been in a lot of rare positions. I was in Hurricane Camille, Biloxi, Mississippi, when it took out Camille and Biloxi Air Force Base, the Keesler Air Force Base. I was at ground zero on a body cleanup in 1969, in August. There's a lot of unique things I've been exposed to. Been in tornadoes, been picked up, had my car picked up in a tornado, survived that. The man in front of me died. His car got flipped over and blew up. He was destroyed. Just 80 miles an hour, that much to travel 15 feet. He died, I didn't, because he was 15 feet in front of me. The amount of things, why you're here, why you're supposed to be here, all the split-second things that happen in your life, but the snap of a finger. I was 18 years old. I'm standing up against a tree. I'm playing with a 20-gauge shotgun shell while rabbit hunting, and I bend over to pick up. I dropped the shell, and as I bent over to pick it up, a 30-30 slug split the back of my jacket open. Did I drop that pen, or was it knocked out of my hand?
Knocked out of your hand.
And I bent over to pick it up just as the slug split through my jacket, and I still have the bullet hole in the back of my middle of my back. A scar formed years later. And it's quite prevalent. It's about 1 inch in diameter, about a 1/4 inch deep, where the bullet went through me. But why am I still here doing this? Is because I'm supposed to be. And if they are successful in assassinating me, they just go back and reset the clock and jump and fix it. Because this math interface on communications will stop wars and guarantee that planet Earth does have a future, not only with our own people, our own races, our own tribes, or with ET when he shows up, because eventually we're going to evolve. We're out there in space. We're broadcasting. You don't think those signals don't go out? And somebody's going to be listening someplace and show up here? You know, do the math. We're a young planet. We're a young species amongst the billions of years that this world's been around. The proof of that is in the spacecraft up in Greenland, that they've been here 50,000 years ago. And those guys were 65 to 85 feet tall. They had dinosaurs. The world was big way back when. Now everything is small. Question?
Yeah, you talked a couple times about ETs. What exactly are they, or what's the purpose?
ET can be many of anything. It means extraterrestrial, which means not of this world. And, you know, there's been millions of sightings worldwide of spacecrafts, right? Even a couple weeks ago, opening night of the Olympics. Anybody watch that on TV? In London, they had the fireworks went off above the stadium. And that's a no-fly zone because of security. And there was a UFO above the stadium, about 50, 60 feet in diameter, because everything went up in so many different spectrums of light. It was cloaked, had a cloaking device, but because of the amount of light frequencies from the explosives of all the different fireworks, chemical light, it illuminated the spacecraft above the stadium. And it was on YouTube, and over 200 different countries videotaped it. And they tried to play it down as being a balloon in the air. There was no balloons up there. There was no blimps. There was no aircrafts. But E.T. was up there watching. I say that I do this at all the seminars. Small craft would not have power to travel between point A and point B because of the universe, how big it is. In other words, our closest star is 4 light years away, Orion. Because an object no bigger than this room wouldn't have a fuel supply capable of doing something like that. So my take on this is that these are time machines from Earth, from our own future, because they're only visible for a split second. And the same craft has been videotaped and photographed millions of times over the last 70 years all over the planet, identical to the one above the stadium.
So are those pictures still on YouTube?
No, every one of them on the internet has been taken down. Nobody's got it. There was a few sites that were up there, but the government's been chopping them off left and right. Anything with the... If you type in... but people do have copies, and they're putting them up as fast as they tear them down. So if you type in UFO over Olympics opening day, it'll pull up a whole bunch of different sites and see pictures of it. My surmise is that these are time machines that come back in time to view or stop events that would destroy the planet. Some crazy guy setting off a dirty bomb, for instance. They run the video backwards and find out who's responsible, come back in time to remove this individual. Inasmuch as mom and dad never met. Instead of turning right at the corner, he turned left and never met his mate. Therefore, the individual was never created. The crime never took place. It's something as simple as that. Being able to fix the time-space continuum, because, in the Cold War, from World War II until present day, they built 88,000 nuclear bombs. They didn't detonate any of them because of what happened. Everybody knows Oppenheimer, the guy who developed the atomic bomb, World War II, in Area 51. His brother died 2 years ago. On his deathbed, he gave the GPS location of 2 B-2 bombers in Germany that had flown through the Philadelphia experiment at the time it took place in 1944. The window was opened, and the 2 B-2 bombers flew through that window in 2007 or 2008 it was, and they flew back in time and landed in Germany in 1945. And they built this hangar, and they had this hangar completely covered over with dirt, 20 feet of dirt, with these 2 B-2 bombers with 4 nuclear bombs in there, but they didn't have fuel for them. Otherwise, they could have flown those bombers into New York City from Germany. On his deathbed, he gave the GPS the location of those 2, and they were dug up. That was up on YouTube, that they had recovered these 2 bombers that had flown back in time and verified that the window is still open on the Philadelphia experiment. There's events that are taking place that are becoming more and more relevant to the relevancy of what quantum language is and its importance in the timeline of this planet, and why I'm allowed to teach this, and how specific events have taken place that I've uncovered in contract language, like the beginning of the post office, how the fraud took place, and been able to unravel who do you prosecute in court. When we go to court, this here is a federal lawsuit that I wrote. This deals with this is the International Maritime Organization. Russell Gould and I put this one together. But this is a document contract, federal postal court, federal court venue document. It's postal, folks. We have federal flag and a federal postage stamp. This is a federal court we're suing. When this goes into this commission under maritime law, this is the court. This paper is. And when it's filed at the Maritime Commission, this was filed creating this vessel in a sea of space to be the court. They have to come into the understanding of the syntax within this document and say, all the Maritime Commission officers have to say, show me your correct parse, syntax, grammar, oath of office. Show me the correct parse, syntax, laws, rules, regulations, and codes that allow you to do and capture the things you capture. We have rewritten your lawsuit or rewritten your charter in the correct parse, syntax, grammar. And we are now forming a treaty with you through the Document Contract Postal Vessel Corporation. That's myself and Russell Gould. Yes?
So if you taught this stuff to them, you mentioned in 2000, why are they still going on in their fiction?
They're only advertising the fiction to you as the population. Why? Because if they were to stand up and say, okay, we've got a quantum contract here, and the whole planet is sitting there in fiction, it'd be like the president getting on CNN and explaining the dollar bill to you, disqualifying all money. You can't have, the whole world has been 8,500 years in fiction with all their fiction contracts. So you have to be responsible at all times. That when we want to switch gears, I only have to educate 1% of the population. Those are your political leaders, your judges, your attorneys, your politicians, Congress, Senate, the legislature of all 250 countries, all the bankers, simultaneously, where the United Nations stands up and says, we're going to switch gears today. Everybody changes on the same day.
Is that going to happen?
Yeah, it's going to happen. Just like they had the new money come out. They went to the euro. These were different exercises in communicating a change, a dynamic change of a large area of international trade, commerce, and contract, and see how the people accepted it. Well, it worked for the euro. It worked for when the new money came out. Nobody got crazy. Stock market didn't go nuts.
So any time frame?
Well, 12/21, 2012 is a couple of weeks away. We'll find out, because that's what all the calendars say is the beginning of the end. Yes?
So are we going to have an Amero?
Well, okay, the Amero is Canada, Mexico, and the United States and Central America. In other words, everyone on the North American continent using the same currency. And tear down the borders between Canada and Mexico so that it would be one country under the postal. The Amero is a reality, but it's not in place yet because of the trade, the value of trade between the different countries. The contract that surrounds the Amero is written in adverb verb. That's why it has not been implemented. It may be implemented with the next presidential election, provided the treaties have been reconfigured. When I went to China, we took the new transportation money contracts in quantum grammar. These are the upgrades from 2000 on the international trade agreements we wrote with the different 82 country banking. And those have now been implemented. We spent $2,500 on mailings to mail out the new contracts to all the same countries that we are treated with beforehand. We sued all 50 election boards with the correct parse, syntax, grammar election forms, which are 7, and 25 government agencies here about 6 weeks ago, before we went over to China. Those were all sent out registered mail. Pink card return receipts. We haven't gotten back a single pink card. However, when I walked into the federal building, the marshals surrounded me and said the Justice Department is extremely interested in you. We've got so much flash taking place on the computer on you. You're a real hot box. I says, well, I'm a presidential candidate. I says, I filed my papers. I says, so under the guise of the Secret Service. So they escorted me out of the building. all 6 marshals, and said, "You're not allowed to be in our building. You're a presidential candidate. You're under Secret Service, guys. You can't be in a federal building. You're a sovereign person. And you're also an Article 3 judge." Anybody know what an Article 3 judge is? You probably never heard of one before. Well, even the Marshal Service said, "We've heard the word Article 3 judge. We've never met one before. You're a genuine sovereign and an Article 3 judge." And an Article 3 judge is a judge on contract, folks. They don't work in a courtroom. Don't sit in a courthouse anywhere in the world. The courthouse is the paper. The paper is the contract. The contract words on the paper is a constitution. The Constitution articulates, under law of the flag and postal codes, the geographical location in terms of a constitution, Title 28, 1331, venue authorization for a clerk to file the paperwork, a 1361 authorization for a judge, and a Title 28, Section 636 to order the court open. In other words, ordering the piece of paper to be an open court, and whoever signs the stamp endorses it and puts their name on it as a federal judge is the federal judge on the paper. Because it's a federal stamp and a federal flag, there is no such thing as a state court. Any state court touching money, doesn't it say Federal Reserve Note? You can't be federal in a state entity. If there is no money involved in a state court operation, they must get you to sign a bond making your body collateral for the bond. There's no paper. You become of value as a bond. That's why you have to bond out of a state court. They can't create money. They're not federal. They're state. And the courthouse is a foreign vessel in dry dock. So you've left Indiana territory, and now you've entered the condition of an illusion who makes you bond yourself. Once you're bonded to the vessel in dry dock, the sheriff can leave the courthouse, and the sheriff is only there to protect the judge, and go out and capture you as a bounty hunter. And that gives him his authorization to leave the vessel and go out onto the Indiana territory and capture you. If you don't bond out, you'll never leave the foreign vessel in dry dock. Because if they don't own you, they can't leave the courthouse to come and get you. Now, when you file one of my lawsuits in federal district court, once it's contracted with the clerk of the courts, which is responsible to receive vessels and dock the vessel, a district court judge is not a federal judge. They must sign the federal oath and must sign the federal lawsuit to be a federal judge on the lawsuit. The federal judge is going to come back. Federal judge is going to come back, and here's your case number. It's 12 CV 123. That's what the clerk puts on your paperwork. The judge is going to come back and he's going to answer you 12 CV lowercase 0123. It's a different case number. Or they're going to come back and say C 12123. That's another case number. Then they're going to come back CV 120123. Lowercase CV 1200123, 12 uppercase CV 0123. These are all. Then they're going to say, well, this is the case number here. No, all these are different case numbers. Now, if you had taken one of these and put them as the key to get into your computer, you think that any of these are going to open up your computer except the correct one? Same thing is true when you go looking for the case number at the courthouse. They punch that in there, they're not going to find your case number. Then they're going to say, well, you paid $350 for this case number, and they dismissed your case under this one. Or the judge sent, come to court with this number. The lawyer filed this one. The lawyer answered back to this one. The judge dismissed your case with this one, and they want you to come into court to arbitrate this one when this is your original number. Okay, once your original number is filed, we run 45-day trust law and 3-day rescissions. Once those 48 days go by, you have now a document, contract, a fault document contract claim. 4 words. Writ of the fault document contract claim. We filed the lawsuit. We filed the correct parse syntax grammar. We took the let's see here. There it is. This here is your deed of trust to your property here in Indiana. And we identified every single word by placing a number on top of it. All 6,000 words. So we couldn't, if we take this document and write the word adjective on top of the word red, we wouldn't have enough space, right? So we use the number 3 in place of it. When we do numbers, you can read 300 words a second when it comes time to correct this document. You know that? Just takes a little bit of practice, and all of a sudden, like, you're aware you can read 300 words a second in number codes. The mind can comprehend 10,000 thoughts a second. So doing 300 a second is just, once you get used to it, it's a breeze to blow through contracts and read in number codes. Question?
Does this stuff have anything to do with our birth certificate being fraudulent or?
Okay, birth certificates. When you are born, the United States government allows you 45 days under trust law, and on the 45th day, you're declared to be a dead person because your name on your birth certificate is null and gare. Okay, on that 45th day, they then take your birth certificate and sell it to the Internal Revenue Service and issue $1 million worth of cash to go into your account. Why do they do that? Because they need money to account for your wages, medical expenses, automobiles, buying houses, and then accumulated interest to pay for your retirement at 65 through 100. If they don't put $1 million in cash into a numbering system as a value for the energy of your life, there would never be enough dollars in the system to support the entire planet's operations as the population expands. This is a good thing. Number 2, under the redemption, it's called the redemption, which was created by Janet Reno in 1995 under Bill Clinton. Redemption was engineered to capture anybody that would steal money from this treasury, from this number, and put them in prison for 30 years for mail fraud banking. Why? Because the redemption program was set up in adverb-verb, and if you use adverb-verb, you activate the Title 15, Section 1692E, and Title 15, 78FF for a $25 million fine and 30 years in prison for bank fraud. And if you don't study this program, thousands, tens of thousands of people were put in prison for using the redemption and stepping on that trap. Lost their homes. Peterson, Clark, and Schweitzer, Leroy Schweitzer, promoted this thing and went through and harvested over 2,000 families across the South and the West, lost their homes, went to prison. They took their farms, their cars, their homes, their pension, everything, put them in prison, which resulted in, for those that are old enough, the Freeman standoff in Montana, Montana Freeman, 1995. And guess who prosecuted the 100 FBI agents for fraud and misleading statements on that exercise? I did. I'm the judge. And now the same U.S. attorney that was involved, went up against me in 1995, is involved with the Kansas case I'm involved with on a foreclosure. When my name popped up last week, she went ballistic. She says she lost that case in 1995 and it was a burr. You know where burrs go. And as a result of that, she is just livid. She wants my head on a stick. I'm going, well, have fun. I says, well, first off, you got a 2nd grade reading level against my 28th grade reading level, and I'm going to have you for breakfast. So it's just a matter of a couple of weeks before we file the indictments against her. Question?
What happened to the Freeman Schweitzer?
Well, here's the state of Montana. Here's where the Freemen were held up. Here's Billings, Montana, and I was right here in Cat Creek. Now, when I showed up in Billings, I got off the plane, and a gentleman met me, and he says, "Come on, we're going over to my ranch." Well, I had corresponded with this man several times. When I got to the ranch, there was about 20 guys with shotguns. And he said, "You're going to stay here and write a lawsuit at gunpoint, and you're going to write this lawsuit to get these guys out of trouble up here." Well, it took 5 days to put together the lawsuit to do it. Then I went on the radio to do a radio show in Billings, Montana about parsing syntax grammar and how the fraud works. The FBI, 5 minutes after we started broadcasting, blew up all 4 radio stations in Billings, Montana. So we called another radio station 200 miles away, and we sent out the broadcast, went out on Republican Christian radio worldwide as to what was going on. 38 miles south of the compound, there is a limestone quarry, 125 feet deep. Some of the other free thinkers, I guess you could call them, freemen, witnessed 2 105 howitzer cannons being moved at night down the country road very quietly. And they set up 2 120 millimeter cannons in the quarry. They then evacuated everybody within 5 miles away of the quarry because they would hear the blast of the cannons when they were fired. The idea was to shoot a shell 20 miles up in the air under a full moon and have it fall down on top of the compound, blowing a hole in the ground 100 feet wide and 50 feet deep, saying they had explosives and blew themselves up, hence solving the problem. In 1820, the area, now Lewis and Clark showed up here in 1834 on the Yellowstone with Sachegaowian. In 1820, an Indian treaty was cut up here with the French. The farm of the Freemen had never been ceded into the United States of America, was a whole in the United States of America under Indian treaty. And this was purchased land. When everything got conquered, the Treaty of 1820 was overlooked. So the Freemen were sitting on sovereign territory, not part of the United States of America, outside the jurisdiction. It was a whole in America. That's why the FBI came from Puerto Rico. 100 agents were deputized, not of the United States citizenship, and surrounded the compound, but couldn't go in. They couldn't trespass onto a foreign country because they didn't have a permit to be there. These are some of the secrets that you people don't know about, and as a federal judge, I have classified information about all this because I handle lawsuits for all this stuff. When it was exposed that the cannons were here, it was my job then to get word to the Freemen. The senator from Denver, Colorado shows up, and he took 9 of my cassette tapes in about grammar and gave it to the Freemen. After playing the tapes, they said they realized that their whole entire position and the way they were thinking was a lie. They realized that their treaty, even though they were sovereign within this little hole in the world, was also a lie because the treaty was written in adverb verb.